All right, it's nonstop, never stop on Sportswire Radio, figuratively and literally. We are getting you ready for a huge weekend ahead in professional wrestling. You heard a little bit of some of the little guys earlier before on Sportswire Radio, but now we hear from some of the big shows ahead. We've got Night of Champions coverage. We've also got Double or Nothing, and to kick things off for us here for a little while and riff on it is the man behind the hockey fan chat. He's also a guy that's dabbled a little bit in the world of pro wrestling. That is the returning Mr. Randy Dillon. Randy, how you doing?
I'm doing great, Tom. How are you? Great to be back after a few weeks.
Absolutely. Well, definitely happy to have you, and definitely excited to have you open things up here. And I guess here, because I just saw it on SmackDown like everybody else here, and is it seem like that this rift between the Usos and Roman and Solo, maybe for now, has been put a temporary band-aid on things, or do you see this kind of brewing a little bit further tomorrow night there in Saudi?
I definitely see this brewing further in Saudi Arabia because I think we're at the point where there's not much more you can do to put the bloodline over. They were over to such an extent the last few years where they ran WWE. Now we're the point they have to break up. Otherwise, you're going to be going in NWO WCW territory where you're just trying to keep them together for whatever reason possible, and just going to backfire. I think the crack, the cracks, not even cracks, the holes are there. The floodgates are open. The bloodline is coming to an end. It's just a matter of when.
Okay, so that's obviously the question. Do you think then that KO and Sami Zayn kind of hang on to these tag team championships for a little while longer? Or, as we saw the Usos kind of give the belts to Roman and Solo, do they maybe take these titles and then we play around with this? What do you think happens?
No, I expect the KO and Sami Zayn to retain their titles tomorrow night at Night of Champions. Roman hasn't defended that title, his own title, since WrestleMania. Why are we going to give
Right.
him a whole division title to kind of handicap?
There's a reason why, because it was alluded to. We've spoke about this here on Sportswire many times. What is next week? The 1,000 day anniversary since Roman has become the champion,
Yeah.
and what better way to cement that and celebrate it by adding more gold to his resume?
Yeah, there is that possibility, but I think at this point, I just don't think it's the right move to give it to Roman and Solo. Like if it's a short term thing where they win them and then they lose the titles right away, then I would be okay. But I think in the long story process, somehow the Uso is going to cost Roman. Solo is going to get the pin, and we're just going to see the implosion. I think we'll see tomorrow where Solo's going to choose his line. Is it his brothers or is it Roman Reigns?
Well, we'll certainly have to find out here. And the other match that I'm very curious about your opinions on here is Brock Lesnar and Cody Rhodes. Certainly, it has gotten personal, it has gotten nasty, and has obviously gotten physical here. And does Brock find a way to even the score, or does Cody get another win here? And I guess march eventually to whatever he does here in terms of trying to finish the story.
I honestly think Cody's gonna get another win here. How they built it up, where Brock has just been really just destroying Cody,
Yep.
attacking him, injuring him. I think this is building up for Cody's redemption story, which personally I think should take place at SummerSlam, where all the every indication pointing there. But it adds more to Cody to win because I feel like he wins and Brock, they have another match between him and Brock. I just feel this feud has been interesting, I think, but I know there's been a lot of people saying negative. We still don't know the whole reason why Brock attacked Cody. We literally don't. I think it's pure jealousy that Brock opened WrestleMania against in a horrible match against Omis to Cody finishing with a 5-star match against Roman. So I think that's what it's coming down to. And it adds to Cody resume. Listen, there's not many people that can say they beat Brock Lesnar 2 matches in a row. I think there's only one person that may hold that record, and that's Goldberg. And That was a long
Yeah, and
time.
that's a big that's a big asterisk because if I'm not mistaken, now again, I wasn't that good at math. It was about a 12 and a half year gap. So that's
Yeah,
a
that's the only reason
big
why.
asterisk.
But you think about John Cena, The Undertaker, his feud with Kurt Angle, like he beat he some of these guys that won winner were never consecutive back to back wins over Brock Lesnar. So I think Cody Rhodes might be the first one to do that.
Oh, well, that's a very interesting point. I had thought about that, and I was thinking maybe did Kurt Angle, but then you make a fair point. I don't think Angle did it in that 2003 run, and certainly John Cena didn't. So, I mean, that would certainly be a feather in his cap. And I wanted to ask you also, what do you think happens here with Bianca Belair here in her championship? Because I'm kind of wondering also, when does her days run out of luck?
I think I think her day has run. I think she's actually gone a little bit past expiry. Because think about it, she really hasn't defended the title against anyone. The only other person I can see Bianca dropping that title to at this point is Charlotte. And but Charlotte, we know, is taking time off. We don't know when she's going to be back. I think Asuka the heel has a lot more potential. There's a lot more people she can work with. I think you can kind of put Bianca in a different position and potentially you can give her the title back later on. But I think at this point, she's come to that expiration date and you don't want to sour mouth with her. She's an ambassador for the company. The fans are
Right.
behind her. You
Yeah,
don't want to.
I think I said this on a recent Sportswire show. You weren't on it, but I almost compared her to like the female John Cena at this point.
Oh, she definitely is, but I think she's more the crowd more behind her than John Cena was. But I think you don't want to get to that point where they turn on her.
Right, absolutely. And I think that was kind of my reference there. And so I'll ask you then a general question, and then I want to spend a couple of minutes on AJ and Seth. And I obviously want to go to Double or Nothing in AEW because obviously I actually watched Dynamite this past Wednesday for the first time in a while. So I'm obviously up to speed on that. So, I mean, are there any upsets you're projecting or you think might happen before I ask you, obviously, the big one on AJ and Seth, who walks away with that? So, are you expecting any upsets, anything of note before I get into that match?
I don't expect Gunther to lose the IC title. I know Mustafa Ali has come out and say if he's losing, he's leaving WWE. I I don't. Gunther right now has so much momentum with him and Imperium. Eventually, Imperium's gonna win the tag team titles. Just a matter of time. Becky Lynch and Trish Stratus. I don't know.
Mm.
I don't know if Trish winning what you would call an upset, but I think this feud it
Yeah,
hasn't. I think it's going to continue. It hasn't really clicked, but I have a feeling we're going to have another match at SummerSlam where Becky's going to. That's when Becky's going to get her
or
win.
even Money in the Bank. It's overseas, and Trish Stratus is an international draw. Maybe even you have Trish win tomorrow, and then maybe Becky and her have a rematch at Money in the Bank, possibly also.
Yeah, there's that possibility there. I'm just trying to think of the other matches that are scheduled for tomorrow because I know this card hasn't been really put well together. So I'm just trying to think what are
So
the
I
other.
mean, so we'll come. Well, we have the tag team situation
Yeah,
also with the tag team titles, which I was actually that was going to be my next point. This whole situation with Liv Morgan obviously is out for an injury, and Raquel has now had her partner now picked with her. And I mean, what do you think happens there? We've obviously got Ronda Rousey and Shayna Baszler, and then we've got this team of Chelsea Green and Sonya Deville. And I mean, does Raquel kind of find her way and re-get the tag titles, or does it go back to Ronda Rousey and Shayna Baszler and kind of the moment that most people were expecting going back to pre-WrestleMania?
logical sense is telling me Ronda Rousey and Shayna Baszler are going to win the title because I think originally they were supposed to win, but because of Rousey's injury, the timing
Right.
wasn't right. But I think a more interesting decision would be to put the titles on Chelsea Green and Sonya Deville. Listen, Chelsea Green has been money since she's returned. I think they have the audience attention. They're getting great heat. I think they could really push these two with the tag team titles really further down the line and make them even big stars. And they're both great workers. Like that.
No, I think there's no question that they've kind of had an interesting team. And Chelsea Green, you didn't know what to expect the way she came back a few months ago. And Sonya Deville has always kind of been like on the peripheral outside looking in. Maybe you see something there. Rhea Ripley and Natalia, I would obviously expect Rhea to retain there. That was kind of another
Yeah.
one of the matches I was kind of getting to. And what's your thoughts
Yeah,
there on that?
Rhea. I think this is just a match where they have to put Rhea against someone. Natalia, I think at this point, Natalia, the good one to start off with until she gets too bigger. Because I think eventually we're going to see Rhea versus Becky Lynch for the Raw, for the SmackDown. I guess SmackDown Women's title still on Raw. I still don't understand that part, but it is what it is. But yeah, I expect Rhea to get the win and to face Becky upcoming here in the next little while.
Okay.
With Trish.
Fair play, and I definitely mostly agree with you on most of those assertions. So then let's get right into it. That is Seth Rollins and AJ Styles, and as crazy as it sounds, I still don't know where they go here on this. I mean, I heard a couple of different things tonight on SmackDown. AJ Styles promo certainly gave me maybe some optimism from his vantage point. He may get it. Seth Rollins has kind of been on this man on a mission here of late. Obviously, this is a big deal to be the quote unquote first WWE World Champion. It's crazy. It sounds if you were watching the WWE Network of late, they kind of had a special and they showed like all the former promotions and their world titles. And WWE is deciding now they've got their first ever world champion, which is kind of such a bunch of rubbish there. But I mean, what do you think happens here in Seth and AJ? It's kind of a dream match that obviously people would want to see for a world title. And I mean, who do you think does walk away with this ultimately?
This has been interesting because I think when this first came out, Seth Rollins was the main guy you think who's going to win the title. But there's a couple of things that put me doubt. One, we noticed Seth Rollins is on. It looks like on his way on Hollywood. He landed a big role in the new Captain America movie that's going to be coming out here shortly, so that could play a factor. The other factor that really has interested me is his promos. He keeps mentioning Roman in a lot of his promos, interviews. It sounds like to me this title had nothing to do with Roman, but you keep bringing up. I honestly think AJ's gonna find a way to walk in, and Seth is gonna face Roman either at Money in the Bank or at SummerSlam, because I think there's still that big asterisk beside day 1000. There's one guy Roman Reigns still hasn't been able to put on that list, which is Seth Rollins. And I think with all the mentions, Seth keeps talking about Roman, and how things are going, this might be the opportunity with Thea where he can capitalize, because Roman looks like to be vulnerable with other things in the bloodline.
Okay, and a follow up, would it be if AJ wins? Is this kind of like, how can I put it? Maybe the icing on the cake of his career, because as we all know, he's probably in the twilight of his career at this point.
Oh, absolutely. You look at AJ Styles, everything he's done in TNA, being the first Triple Crown champion. They're one of the original New Japan WWE, hold that title for over a year. He's defending it a lot, making a name, really carrying on the show when guys like John Cena were stepping back, especially on SmackDown where the roster wasn't as strong. So he's definitely done a great job. I just think this is truly the pinnacle of his career, winning another world title.
Yeah, because I kind of think that this is probably the last real run he could have. So if you say it's true that Seth were to do other things, logic would say AJ gets a crack at the title, and then you figure out where to go from there. Here, we'll have to see. And before I move over to AEW, I did want to ask you something, because there was a couple of news and notes. There was a story out there that was circulated on one of our Sportswire shows that Randy Orton may be near the end of his career, if you believe his father. And John Cena actually came out and said that he really can't do it anymore full time. And while he didn't retire, I would have to imagine the only times you're going to see Cena these days is like I did last weekend in Fast X. So, I mean, what do you make then of the situations then of John Cena and Randy Orton?
For John Cena, I think the writing's been on the wall. He's been done, I think, since he left in 2020 after the COVID
Yeah,
WrestleMania
the Playtime Funhouse.
Fire
Yeah.
Funhouse match. He hasn't really wrestled since then. You look at his last two matches against Roman and even against Austin Theory, it was really the other guys carrying the card. It wasn't that fast paced Cena we've seen. And Ric Flair has said this many times. A wrestler's worst enemy is being outside the ring, and John Cena has been outside the ring much more now. So I don't expect. I know everyone's thinking he's going to beat Flair's record, but at this point, I don't think it likelihood for Randy Orton is very unfortunate because I think, could be one guy to actually beat Flair record. He still had miles to go. He was doing great work with RK Bro. I know they had a big storyline set between him and Roman, and then it just unfortunately with his age factors in. We know history, the back issues with Shawn Michaels. He had to leave 4 years, and he was in the prime of his career. Randy
Yeah,
Orton.
he was younger. He was about 6 or 7 years younger, so you kind of get that ability to rest. And unfortunately, Orton is just past 40, 41. So you think about that, and that's tough.
And he's been a workhorse for the company. I think we forget where John Cena may have been the face of the company for the WWE for so long. Randy Orton was a workhorse for the WWE. When he's healthy, he was there putting on the event, wrestling other guys. Even though he wasn't in the main event, he was always there carrying the show,
Oh, absolutely. No,
drawing
listen.
attention. So definitely the wear and tear is there. So it's unfortunate, but I think at this point, like it's something it's fortunate to talk with the life of the pro wrestler is something you have to address. It's a
Well,
situation where
we were speaking about this the last 2 days on Sportswire. We had three different personalities in wrestling. Two of them are wrestlers. One was a talent relations guy. And the first guy was Kyle Kennedy, the lawman. And he basically gets a broken arm and he's having arm problems. And he's only 26. And he looks like he's out of action for a year and may have to retire. And then we had on a guy, Jack Delta, who basically was training like you to be a pro. And then he got injured on a suplex. And the guy who was doing the move actually totally screwed up what was a seamless move. So in wrestling, people think, oh, it's like hockey, it's like the other sports. No, I mean, you could have one freak accident happen to you and your life could totally change. And maybe that's going to be the case for Orton. I'm still going to say maybe we see Cena again in the ring, maybe next year. I don't know. I know right now I just caught him at Fast X. I'll be seeing him again this weekend, watching the movie a second time. But those are some things that we're going to talk about further, I'm sure, in the future. And if you are on Sportswire Radio, I'd like you to give Randy Dillon a follow on Instagram and Twitter at Randy Dillon. That's DHILLON. Love what Randy does. He is also the co-host of the Hockey Fan Chat. In about 15 or so minutes, we'll hear from the rest of the Sportswire Radio team. And if you like what you hear from us, we are on Facebook at Sportswire Radio, just past well over 600 followers now. Got a lot of new followers recently. Also on YouTube, a lot of new subscribers. So I really want to thank everybody. Go over to YouTube at Sportswire Radio. And also we're on sportinarium.com/player, where 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, 365 days a year, you can listen to all of our great content. And I will actually be taking a rare day off tomorrow, but it's not really a day off because I'm going to watch a WNBA game at 1 p.m., which I'm going to do with the brute force Brad Weiss and Anthony Finkel, although I'm not really too much a fan of the 1 o'clock start time because that cuts into my sleep patterns. But I will be off, though, thankfully, and I'll be back, though, Sunday night, 9 p.m. Eastern time, with the nemesis James Taylor, who's got nearly 31,000 subscribers on YouTube. So very excited about that, to speak with him. Although he's been on a couple of times, we'll dive more into his career and journey and more. But we are here with Randy Dillon, getting you ready for Night of Champions and AEW's Double or Nothing. Randy Dillon. Now, speaking of champions that might be injured and may not be there, or we don't know if they're going to be 100%, Jamie Hayter, what's going to happen?
Well, this is very tough. Very unfortunate news with Jamie Hayter. And listen, since she's gotten the title, she has done dramatic work really from being
Love Jamie Hayter. And of course, she's a Brit, and we love the Brits on Sportswire. You know that.
exactly from being Britt Baker's kind of sidekick to really coming in her own, really making a prominent name for herself in AEW. So we'll have to wait and see if they let her go, if she goes or not, because we talk about professional wrestlers and injuries. Listen, sometimes they can pull out the win where they can go the distance, but sometimes it can go worse to where other times it just can't happen. So I wish her the best, but we'll see what happens Sunday. I haven't heard much if she is going to compete or not.
Yeah, it's going to be interesting. It's obviously, unfortunately, one of those, I guess, game time decisions, as you might hear. And then another match that I've been really fascinated with, obviously, and kind of the build for it, which I think has really been good, is Chris Jericho and Adam Cole. You saw the contract signing there. And then Sabu is in AEW. He's going to be at ringside against Adam Cole. And I didn't even know that Sabu really was even doing anything ring wise at this point, considering what he has put his body through. And
I'm
I watched.
surprised he can walk.
I was gonna say, watching him, I was like, Sabu's really gonna do something. Is he gonna do the one big spot that he's known for with the chair and everything else? I guess that's the case because he got to be pushing just about 60 by now. Because I remember when I was watching ECW as a kid, Sabu was pretty much kind of moving gingerly then. Then when they had the ECW Redukes, he was kind of in the same predicament. So what do you think what happens here, though, between Chris Jericho and Adam Cole? I mean, my gut says Adam Cole should get a victory here. But, I mean, what do you make of this whole situation here? Obviously, it's gotten personal and more. And what do you think?
It's so much more than personal because this is Adam Cole's first big match since last year's
Right.
Revolution when he faced Hangman Adam Page. So it's been a long time for Adam Cole to have a big main event match. He's working with the likes of Jericho. We know Jericho is one of the best workers out there. He's shown in AEW he's willing to put over the talent. I expect Adam Cole to get a win here. And then the only thing is what's next for Adam Cole, because if he gets a win here, does this automatically propel him to the world title? Does this maybe the TNT title? Or do we see, because I think there's so much more between Adam Cole and Chris Jericho. Like we know Roderick Strong's in AEW. Kyle O'Reilly could be close to returning. So could we have those three going against the Jericho Association Society down the road? So that's where I think it's going to be interesting. But I expect Adam Cole to pull out the win here.
I think it should be. It's his comeback. It's a big deal here. It's arguably would be the biggest win of his career against a Chris Jericho. I think most people want to see that. Also, speaking of championship matches here, and I guess we have a couple of veterans in them. The first one here I'm going to talk about is FTR and Jay Lethal and Jeff Jarrett. Call me crazy here, but I mean, I kind of want to see Jay Lethal and Jeff Jarrett get these wins. If you saw Dynamite, though, there was a little bit, I guess, of some seeds planted here. I mean, give me your thoughts here on what happens here. FTR obviously have been the best team in the world. We saw one Briscoe that's alive here kind of have this whole, I guess, fighting back his gut with Mr. Lethal and his long-standing relationship. But give me your thoughts on who comes away with these titles.
This is a tough one to decide because how the AEW title kind of been the last tag team title been the last few months. The Acclaim had it, then it went to the Gun Bros, then it went to FTR. So it's really just been hopping around. It wouldn't expect me to see Jarrett and Lethal to win the titles. I think FTR winning it, I don't know who would be next to challenge them. I think with Jarrett and Lethal, you can get them to work with more of the younger talent as well to help them out. And we know with Collision coming around the corner and with the more talent getting opportunities, you want them exposed. But again, FTR just came back after being on hiatus. Are you going to take the title and kind of say, okay, go on another hiatus? That's where
I think then that maybe you answered it. FTR, I guess, hangs on. AEW kind of figures out what to do from there. Although logic would say if you're going to transition to somebody else, Lethal and Jarrett get them. But I think you answered that. And then the other veteran that's in a title match for the TNT title, Christian Cage against Wardlow. And I mean, what do you think here?
Going to be a good match. It's a ladder match. So we know Christian knows how to work these matches really well. Mm-hmm. I have to think Wardlow's gonna win this match. It makes you just gave him back the TNT title after it pretty much. You gave it to him, Joe got it. Then he gets it, Mark Hobbs gets it. Now he got it again. Like you really have diminished what I think the TNT title kind of stand for when you first brought it in. It kind of just been a hot potato, I think. And you diminished Wardlow in the process because last year you built him up after him destroying MJF, being a part of the Pinnacle, and then he kind of just took a really step back. So I think Wardlow needs this win more than ever to really continue to get himself established again as one of AEW's top guys. I don't think Christian needs the belt at this point in his career. I think
No, Christian does not need the belt at all. There's no reason for him to have a title as this. I think when he got the title back in TNA over Kenny Omega when they were doing the AEW TNA Impact cross promotion, I think that was kind of what he needed. I don't think at this point he needs it now. And Elite versus Blackpool Combat Club. I mean, certainly that's going to be an intriguing match. Anarchy in the arena. I mean, I'm
this
so curious. Yeah, this might be the one I'm looking forward to
This
most.
is going to be an all-out brawl, and it's going to be amazing because you have some great workers. The story they have shown with
Yep.
Blackpool Combat and the Elite, storytelling at its best. I always say AEW, their storytelling has been flat, but this and Adam Cole and Jericho have been storytelling at its finest. A lot of intrigue. It's going to be a brawl. These guys know what to do for risky situations. We're seeing a lot of great high spots. I'm gonna go with Blackpool Combat's gonna pull out the win. Don Callis is somehow gonna medal in this win to give Blackpool Combat the win to continue his feud with Kenny Omega. It depends on who he's gonna get involved in that feud, but I think Blackpool Combat's gonna pull it out here.
Yeah, I kind of feel the same way for whatever reasons. And then I'm really fascinated on what you think before I get to the main event on Orange Cassidy and this 21-man blackjack battle royal. I mean, they were kind of referencing it quite a bit at the beginning of the show on Dynamite and for the AEW international title. And I mean, do we see a title change here, or does Orange Cassidy, as he always does, kind of find a way here to get a W and retain his championship?
When Orange Cassidy actually first won this title, a lot of people, and I was one to say, wait, Orange Cassidy's still there? He won the title. And I think now the last few weeks and a few months, he's really built a lot of momentum to being a very
Yeah, he's had some big wins. He's had some really good wins.
He brought, I think, recognition back to the international title, I believe it.
Yep. Yeah, he's been the champion there for almost, I want to say, 7 months, just about.
Yeah. Exactly. So at first, when he won the title, was kind of like an afterthought. But the last few months, he's had such a great momentum. I think you gotta let him keep the title for a little bit longer just to build off what you have. Because I feel if you take the title off him, all that hard work he's done may diminish, and the title itself and him might take a back seat. But I think this is the hottest he's been in AEW in a very long time. So keep running with it.
And I also think that you never really want to have your champion lose a title in a battle royal, because we referenced something earlier this week on Sportswire where a champion and a world champion, and I won't name the promotion, but I said a lot about it in England, that had lost his title in a 6-man elimination match, and there was a lot
You
of
only drop the title in a battle royal if you know the guy can't go.
Right, if he's injured or if he's on the
just
way out or whatever that might be. I don't like. I just don't want to see him lose the title in a battle royal. But speaking of, I am sure Mr. Khan and how he is, I guess on screen, desperately wanting, although he would never say this on the air because he's not really a Vince McMahon type, but this 4 pillars of AEW match. MJF, obviously MJF always kind of the most controversial champion for a number of different reasons. His lack of matches, lack of defenses, things he says, and different things here, and is defending his championship kind of an interesting kind of way that we'll see him defend the title here. And he's going to be up against a number of different opponents. And I mean, does MJF retain here, or do you see maybe a mild upset, whether it's a Jungle Boy or a Sammy Guevara or even a Darby Allin, who, in some ways, if he cuts a little bit of the promo on Dynamite, maybe that's the guy that, maybe he looks like a champion. I mean, but what do you think here?
MJF is going to retain the title. And my thinking is your next big event is in Wembley. It's going to be in front of 70 to 80,000 fans at this point. They could, maybe 100,000. We don't know yet, but we know it's close to the 80,000 mark. The best story to go in to that arena and to build an MJF versus CM Punk for the AEW.
Well, it looks like June 17th. Mr. Khan mentioned Collision and where it's going to be. I would imagine that that's what could happen.
It's the best story you can go in because no disrespect to Darby Allin, Sammy Guevara, or Jungle Boy. Darby Allin and Sammy Guevara just haven't had momentum. They haven't really built themselves as big characters. Sammy Guevara
Not quite there yet. Yep,
being
they're
with
not quite there.
Jericho, he really needs to show on his own. Like he had the skills, but he needs to now put together on his own. Darby Allin eventually needs to get out of the Sting spotlight where he's been in that spotlight now for so long, and it just defines his character being with Sting until he gets out of that. Jungle Boy, the only one I could see really pulling off the win, but it's just not the time at this point.
Yeah, I don't see Jungle Boy. I mean, I think Darby is kind of like, not to say he's in Dominic Mysterio territory, but it's almost he does need to eventually break away. But I mean, I'm not quite sure. But yeah, I kind of agree with you. MJF probably finds a way to crawl out of there with the championship, kind of a la maybe an Austin Theory style, and maybe, just maybe, we get this build here. And then, just before I get to closing thoughts here and then CM Punk, I mean, Collision, I mean, so I guess everybody's okay with this. I mean, this is what we've been talking about for months.
So it's really a shame because the last, I think, 3-4 weeks had really taken away from the build up from Double or Nothing. It's all been about what's going to happen with Punk, and it's really a shame. Now, Dave Meltzer, for everyone knows, Dave Meltzer is pretty much one of the most reliable source in pro wrestling.
He's been the Bible of pro wrestling news and rumors, even when I was a kid in the 90s. I mean, he was the guy. I mean, he was like, he knows it all.
If something comes out, it's true. So he said it looks like it is in CM Punk will return. But I was reading over the weekend, Raj Gill, if you don't follow me again, he's a very good established stuff. He said apparently they hit a little bit of inputs where AEW has set their terms with Punk, saying he needs to agree to the following. Otherwise, he's going to be sued. Now, I don't know how much that is true, but Raj is one of the most reliable guys. So there's so much drift, especially with the news coming out with Ace Steel getting fired, Punk bringing him back, a lot of people not knowing he came back, being a part of that infamous brawl, and it just has caused so much bad publicity at this point. But you've said this, Tom, many times. CM Punk's been legitimately the biggest draw for this company outside of a few people. He's the one that every wrestling fan knows and recognizes. If you put on AEW, you hear CM Punk, you're going to think, oh, I know this guy. I might give it a check out. That would happen with me with Impact. I saw Kurt Angle there. I checked it out. If someone else, I would have been like, who the heck is this guy? I think, and also the other thing is, the one thing I'm interested with CM Punk is he going to put talent over? Now, people can say he put over MJF. He didn't really. He put him over in a match, but overall the feud made him strong.
I think Jericho, when he was with MJF, Jericho put MJF over. Punk didn't really put him over. Punk didn't put over Eddie Kingston. No. Punk didn't really put over Darby Allin. Who did Punk really put over?
Himself. And let's not forget the whole Hangman Adam Page with the rumors coming out saying Punk never wanted the title in the first place. Tony Khan insisted. So but Punk then saying he went back saying the guy doesn't have the title. Listen, there's so much anus with CM Punk that we don't know what's going to happen. And it just brings such a negative cloud to the company, which is truly a shame, overshadowing such a great AEW card for this weekend.
Oh, it is a great card, and it's interesting as we're here with Randy Dillon speaking until some of the Sportswire guys come on here for a few more minutes. I mean, it's interesting because the Wembley show has had this massive buzz, but Double or Nothing, I feel like, didn't have the same buzz as prior Double or Nothings. I mean, you can't say it's because of COVID. You can't say it's because of what's this and that. To me, it just doesn't feel like it's had that buzz, because it's kind of unfortunate because All In's had this like I mean, I'm on Facebook and I see wrestlers in England. They've got tickets, they've got watch parties booked, but Double or Nothing, it's like not the same buzz. So it's kind of unfortunate. It's why this company's always had this, like, I guess, cloud around it. It's it's they book too many people from WWE, either they don't know how to change titles, if they don't know how to do all these different things. So it's unfortunate here, but we'll have to see what happens. Obviously, we'll talk about it next week. But before I go and bring on these guys here, a quick thought here on the NHL. Obviously, how about those Florida Panthers?
Man, the Panthers, what a story they wrote. Down 3 games to 1 after game 4. Everyone thought this series was over because the Bruins just dominated. And the return of Patrice Bergeron, we all thought it was over. And then, listen, Bobrovsky made some big saves. He outlasted Linus Olmark in game 6 and game 7. They pull up the upset. They dismantled Toronto. Bobrovsky hadn't looked back. Where I think he allowed like 17 goals in the first round in those 5 games in the first round. Since then, he's maybe allowed
And I
17.
think a couple of those games were 5 goals or more. I think two of those of the
Yeah, so he's been red hot since. And Matthew Tkachuk, boy, the Calgary Flames
back-to-back game-winning overtime goals. I mean, historic there.
exactly are just looking at this. And yeah, Alexander Barkov, probably one of the most underrated centers of all time, and he's finally getting a main look at him, like being up there, maybe in the talk of. Listen, he's not Connor McDavid, but can you maybe say he's a top 5 center in the league at this point because all the work defensively he's done there.
Well, from a two-way level, yeah, from a two-way level, certainly, sure.
Aaron Ekblad, what a performance he has. So definitely the Florida Panthers deserve all that. And Paul Maurice as well. Listen, I think it comes to a testament from him wanting to leave Winnipeg. I think there's more of a problem in that locker room than it was on him.
But think about this team also and what we kind of thought last year. Obviously, the whole situation earlier in the year, they won a bunch of games last year. They were obviously a disappointment. It was a team that the last 3 or 4 years had been built, and they were expected to be in this spot. They didn't quite have the success, and yet, ironically, they were pretty much, as we spoke about them throughout most of the second half here, very underwhelming, big underachievers, but they kind of get hot at the right time the last month of the season and they get into the playoffs. They make it the last weekend of the season, and they wind up being the second wild card, and they draw Boston, and yet they find a way here, and here they are, and they're in the Stanley Cup Finals only for the second time in team history, and very quickly in the Western Conference. Dallas finds a way to extend the series. Can they make it interesting, or does Vegas close this one out? What do you think?
Dallas is only going to extend this.
That's why I asked.
Yeah, Dallas is only going to extend this series if Jake Ottinger can come up with some big save. He has been ferocious since the Seattle series. He's allowed, I think, on the road now. He was pulled 2 times in Seattle. He's allowed 3 or more goals in his last 5 road games. So he needs to really be a difference maker if they want any hope to force a game 6 in Dallas. Otherwise, we're going to have a Vegas-Florida final, which I don't think anyone saw coming in a long shot.
Well, we'll bring Justin on here because I guess a couple of other. I know Chris is not with us tonight. We'll see about Brad Weiss. He'll probably be on a basketball court for a little bit. I mean, you have a thought on this, Justin? We were speaking about the Florida Panthers, and good to be with you once again. Obviously, Florida's here in the Stanley Cup Finals, first time since 1996. Kind of interesting. And Vegas has been in this spot. They're in their 4th conference final since they've been in the league, but they have a chance here to go back to the Stanley Cup Finals for the second time in team history. Before I bring on Rob Maraska, I mean, but what do you think happens here? Does Vegas find a way to win in Game 5, or maybe Dallas extends it a little bit?
First of all, good to be back for another week. Listen, I do think Vegas closes it out in Game 5. I know that they were able to win Game 4 without Jamie Benn. I can't see them winning in Vegas without him. I mean, I don't know what happened. Jamie Benn absolutely lost his mind. I don't know what he was doing on that play. It was, captain on captain crime. It was Stone, getting knocked down by Ben, and then Ben cross-checking him to the face, getting the 2-game suspension. So, I just think that Vegas is the better team at this point. And like Randy said, that the play of Jake Ottinger has just been brutal, and it's not been good enough. He was one of the things we marveled at last postseason with some of the performances he had in Dallas's I think Dallas got to the second round last year, if I'm not mistaken.
Yep.
And we marveled at some of the performances by Jake Ottinger, and ultimately this year hasn't been good enough, and especially against a high-powered team like Vegas, you got to be really, really sharp in net. So it'll be interesting to see if Bobrovsky can carry that over, because I do think it'll end up being Panthers Golden Knights. And
I'll tell you what.
Game five.
Listen, Florida's just been a really, really interesting story here. And again, the team that really underwhelming. They've had this core for about 3 or 4 years, and they were expected to be in this spot, and they weren't there. And they get into it now because they sneak into the playoffs, and they have this great run here. So we'll have to see what happens here.
And there's a stat out there that 3 of the last 4 Cup winners were President's Trophy winners the year before they won the Cup.
Well, we had Tampa right in 20.
Yeah, Tampa, the Capitals the year after.
Yeah.
And then last year's Avalanche team won the President's Trophy the previous year, and then won the Cup last year.
And then we had Tampa in the COVID year with the President's winners in 19, obviously.
Yeah.
Right. That was when they got swept by the Blue Jackets. And then after and they had the historic season.
So I guess you're saying then Boston's going to win the Stanley Cup next year, right?
No, I hope not. I hope the Devils win the Cup next year. But right now the trend is looking good for the Panthers, and they're riding quite the wave. They're 12-1. No. They are 14. I think 14-1.
4-3, 4-1, 4-0. So they're 12-4. But they're actually with an asterisk. They're
11. They've won 11 of their last 12.
That was going to be my point.
That's what I'm trying to calculate.
Yeah,
they've won 11 of their last 12 since going down 3-1 and being basically left for dead against the best team in the league.
And it's a franchise that wins 12 games, and I'm sure somebody will fact check me. I don't even know if they won 12 playoff games since they last went to the Stanley Cup Finals.
Probably not. If I'm not mistaken, that was when they won the first round. When they beat Boston, that was their first series win since they won the Eastern Conference Final.
Didn't they get one?
No, they won Washington last year. They won 2 against the Islander. They lost in 2016. Then they won 2 against the.
So they got 4. So they won.
I'm saying they haven't won a series.
Right. They got the one playoff series against the Capitals.
Yeah.
But my point was, had they even won 12 playoff games?
I think so.
I don't know.
Well, they did get 3 against 3 wins against the Devils in 2012 when the Devils.
Okay, so maybe you know what? Maybe they would have got the Islanders. They got 2 in 16.
First round. The Devils beat them 4 games to 3.
16. It was it was 4-2. Yeah, maybe they did. But the fact that we're even talking about this is not indicative on their history. But that's here nor there. But Randy, I'm going to give you the floor because I got Rob Maraska and the brute force here, and I don't have the voice to go on for 3 hours tonight. So I'm going to give you the floor. I'm going to give you some closing thoughts. Anything else you want to plug, share, say, and the floor is yours, my friend.
No worries, Tom. I'll make this quick. Great to be back. For tomorrow, listen, I know wrestling fans, the usual, AEW suck, WWE suck. They're both bad. But listen, great weekend of wrestling, great show. Just let us fans just enjoy it. For the world of the NHL, we'll see if there will be a Game 6. Again, I honestly believe it's got to be on the back of Jake Ottinger. For the hockey fan chat, Justin. I'll connect with you to see if we could do a final preview.
Well, Neil Piano's available. I'm sure he's not doing Instagram Devils Lives anymore. I'm sure he'll vent. I'm sure you could always ask Neil Villapiano.
We could do it. Definitely get Neil involved as well. And then if you like what you hear from me, follow me on Twitter, Instagram, Randy Dillon. Dillon spelled DILLON.
Awesome. All right. Excellent stuff, Randy. Happy to have you back. Glad you're doing well. Love the belt as always. And you'll always be our champion when it comes to wrestling coverage. And we'll see you next Friday, my friend.
Thanks, Tom. Take care, guys.
All right. That was the returning Randy Dillon here. We're joined for a little while here to speak about some different things here, joined by the brute force Brad Weiss and also Rob Maraska. And we'll obviously go more into the New York Mets because Chris Pizzea is at the Yankee game. And I'll do a little bit of the Yankees. But Mets here, I guess, had an interesting week, Rob Maraska. They play the Cubs, and for whatever reason, the Mets are 19-43 at Wrigley Field since 2003. They do get a victory there at the end of the series. They're salvaged that. Maybe Carlos Carrasco's the biggest story. Then tonight here, Mets are up in Colorado. Scherzer's looked okay. So give me your thoughts on the week that was for our New York Mets. Kind of, I guess, they held serve since we last spoke on Friday.
Yeah, well, let's start in Chicago. It seems like the Mets have been playing, you know, the crummy, the lesser teams they're playing lesser against than the better teams they're playing. They're
That
playing
was a
up
point
to
that
their
Drew Force made
opponent.
last week on the show.
Yeah, I mean they're playing up to their opponents. I mean, let's talk about Marcus Stroman first, man. I'm telling you, how could you let him do that to you? How can you let him pitch that way against you and look at you and laugh at you? I mean, that was just to me that was a disgrace. And that I mean, I watched it, but I couldn't watch it. You know, it was ridiculous. So that was ugly. Then they come back the last game of the series and it's a blowout, so they're hitting finally, and that was good. Tonight Scherzer looks pretty good. He's looked good his last couple of starts. Maybe he's back. Maybe everything's going to be all right with him. Okay, still let's talk about the Mets making the right move and just getting rid of Sanchez. That experiment was, wasn't good. Didn't work out.
Right.
Alvarez is here to stay. I don't know why people are. I'm reading Twitter and people are worried that they're going to send him down. They're not sending him down. All right, enough already with this stuff. Yeah, reading Twitter, I don't know where these guys get this stuff from. He's not going anywhere. He's staying. They need these kids in the lineup, and if the kids are in the lineup, the Mets are looking good. The next one, like we said last week, Vogie, that guy, every time he gets
2 for 23, I think, we're going into tonight, right? 2 for 23. At this point, he couldn't hit a beach ball.
You know the guy's he's gonna look at a pitch and strike out.
He's now. And the crack staff told me he's 2 for 26 actually now after tonight so far.
Oh, after tonight.
Tonight, yeah.
Of course. So that he's the next move. They got to do something about that. Enough already,
Well, they got some guys. Tommy Pham I know has done a little better, but he's a guy that's been dead weight.
Yeah.
Vogelback's been dead weight. I mean, Sanchez obviously speaks for itself.
But the question is, why would they call up Mark Vientos if they're going to just let him run on the bench?
I agree with you.
Mark Vientos actually has equally good numbers in the minor leagues against right-handed pitching as he does left-handed pitching. So he's not strictly a right-handed DH to face left-handed pitching because he can hit against both righties and lefties. And it's time to just admit the Daniel Vogelbach experiment was a failure. And listen to your point about Mets Twitter going nuts about Alvarez getting sent down. It's an Andy Martino scare tactic. That article he posted, what he said on Baseball Night in New York, was just utterly asinine because they're not sending him down. Right now, I would argue he's probably the Mets' second best hitter behind Alonso.
And you know what?
Couple of hits tonight.
Yeah. Yep. And listen, right now he's a Mets catcher. I don't care what anybody says. Sanchez, I don't even know what that was about. I guess it was just a little tryout.
They were very light on depth. Narvaez has been hurt. Nito had the dry eye syndrome, and Michael Perez is Michael Perez. He's not all that great. If you're telling me we're gonna roll Gary Sanchez over Michael Perez's backup, whatever, that's fine. Yeah. And Nito's a backup, that's fine. He'll probably play once a week, which is fine. Catchers do need their off days, and you see the beating. You do see the beating that.
But what do you guys make of Nito though coming in here? Here's a guy. I mean, Ernest Dove loves him to death, but I mean, a guy that's really. I mean, he ain't going to do much better than Sanchez, though. I mean, he'll certainly catch better, but this guy's hitting what, a buck?
Yeah, but if you're asking Nito to catch once a week, he's good defensively. He does bring the value that way. You're not going to get much from him offensively, because and the majority of the nights anyway, when Alvarez is in there, you're going to get offensive production. Because now with Alvarez in the lineup, the Mets have one of the better offensive productions from the catching spot, and that's
which has obviously been the last 2 years a huge sore spot here. The Brew Force Brightwise, obviously, I'll definitely see you tomorrow in person for the first time in a while, but we see each other in the camera on the squares here tonight. And I guess you were kind of, in a way, sort of a prophet with the Mets. It wasn't a horrible week so far. If the Mets win today, they would have swept the Guardians, but lost 2 of 3 in Wrigley Field. And it looks like they're up here tonight. So I guess the Mets kind of held serve. Maybe if they win tonight, actually kind of do a bit better. And as crazy as it sounds, if you look at the standings going into action today, the Mets are actually in a playoff spot. So, I mean, how do you feel about the Mets right now, the Brute Force, Brad Weiss?
Well, I got a lot of things to say. What's going on, guys? And I certainly wanted to hold my thoughts while Rob was going. And, I definitely.
Well, we didn't do a James D. Simone who was trying to interrupt Omen Black and Craven Raid. You saw that the other day.
Oh, I saw that. I was talking to James while he was doing it. So I was, and I got something to say about him later because you're going to be surprised, Tom Bryce. But anyway,
Okay.
What I'm going to say about this, all right, the Mets. All right, I got a lot to say. All right, number one, okay, it's just coincidental that the Mets sweep the Guardians, as Rob said, and then they lay an egg against the Cubs. Because this is the team that, and again, I've been a part of teams both as a coach and as a player, teams that beat better teams and they can't beat the teams that they're supposed to beat. And a lot of those teams do not shape out to be what they were supposed to be. And the Mets right now are showing us that they're not that team still that we think they should be, which is a World Series contender, what we're supposed to be expecting. They're not, because they can't beat these teams that are not. And that just shows, a lot of different things. It shows, leadership issues because, you got to beat these teams. You got to win series against these teams. The one thing that made us confident last year, Tom, why I had confidence up here and everything was because they were winning series after series last year. They were winning consistently series, no matter who it was, but even especially against the weaker teams. This year, it's just over and over again with this nonsense of not winning series against teams that they have to beat. And it just continues to worry me, and I'm really curious to see what they can do this week. I know they're off to a good start today. What I will say is this, because I actually am a little controversial in this.
Okay.
Because everyone's getting on Marcus Stroman, all right, for what he did and how he acted. Ladies and gentlemen, it might have been the best thing the Mets could have asked for, because the Mets needed something like that. They needed, a little bit of a gut punch, a little bit of an embarrassing moment where to wake them up a little bit, to say, oh, well, this guy's doing this to us and this is what we're getting right. We need to wake up. We need something to wake us up to be more consistent. I think that was actually good for the Mets. I know it was something that no Mets fan wanted to see. I know no Mets fan is happy about. But for the Mets team themselves, who is just treading water, 500 team right now, I mean, they need something to push them, something to put them in the right direction as a team. Because right now, they're just treading water. I know, Tom, playoff spot. Oh, great, we're a wild card again. Well, that's what we're supposed to be looking forward to? Oh, we're a wild card team that's going to squeak in and lose in the wild card again. I mean, really? That's the team that we're all signed up for this year to go watch and to be excited about? No. So it is a little bit of a team right now, Tom, that is in purgatory. Okay, we don't know what to expect from them. I don't know what to be excited about. Carlos Carrasco pitches well, Kodai Senga stinks. Someone else pitches well, someone else stinks. I mean, it's not a team where you could be like, oh, we got consistent this, consistent that. The only guys that were consistent is Pete Alonso hitting home runs and Alvarez, as you said, hitting right now. There's nothing else that's consistent. Oh, actually, I'm sorry. Let me leave one more thing that's consistent. Daniel Vogelback sucking. Okay, that's consistent.
Lindor has knocked in a lot of runs. I would say Lindor.
And I also thought you were going to say Nimmo too, because Nimmo's been terrific.
He had a little bit of a slide, but he's came back.
Lindor is basically having the same season as last year. He'll have like a really the batting average.
Again, they've had their highs and lows. Those guys, they've had their highs and lows. Ladies and gentlemen, Daniel Vogelback is just a low. Okay, and I have no idea. I mean, could the Mets?
I asked the question last week. I mean, in terms of
and that's what I was going to bring up, Tom, because you asked us about Daniel Vogelback and you asked us about Aaron Hicks.
I was going to say
the Yankees did the right thing. The Yankees had to do that because he's dead weight and he can't do anything to help the team. And even he can at least switch hit, at least hit the play in the field. What is Daniel Vogelback doing? What is he doing to help the team and benefit the team? And Justin made a great point. You have Vientos. You have a guy who could hit, and you're taking at-bats away from him to put Daniel Vogelback in the lineup? Really? That's what we're going to do? So, again, that just baffles my mind how the Mets just haven't. Again, you're a 500 team that needs to be better, and this is what you're deciding to put out there is Vogelback. I mean, you got to do something different. And right now, I just can't believe it. So, my overall feelings about the Mets, honestly, Tom, are not changing. I'm not going back to being Mr. Confidence. I'm not going to go really low on them. But I'm
to be
right here.
confident about this team right now. That I agree with you on. You want to say something?
I think I'm gonna have to play Mr. Confident here because you know what? What I've seen from Max Scherzer over the last few starts has been terrific. He was terrific tonight. What I've seen from Justin Verlander, aside from the one start against Tampa Bay, he's been terrific, right? So now the Mets have that 1-2 punch back, and yeah, I think we're learning a lot about Kodai Senga, and I think he's definitely been up and down. He's had some good starts, had some bad starts, but I think the time off actually has really helped Carrasco, and I think what you saw last night, I'm not going to say he's going to be that good every time out, but I think you're going to get solid starting pitching out of Carrasco, and we're going to kind of see what he was in 2022. And, when the Mets get, 6 or more innings from the starting pitcher, which has been rare, they win games. And this team is going to start to win games. And I don't know what it is, but for whatever reason, the Mets just don't beat the Cubs.
I brought this down. 19 and 43. 19 of that kind of 2015.
And the last time they won a season series against the Cubs was 2016. Remember the year they went to the World Series? 0-7 against the Cubs. So I don't know what it is. It's something about the Cubs, something about Wrigley Field being a horror show for the Mets. I don't know. That's been tough, but overall, you know what? Luck did say before the game tonight that Vientos is going to play the rest of the weekend. Whether he DHs or maybe plays first base and maybe Pete DHs a day, that remains to be seen. But it does sound like the next couple of games, Vientos will get a crack in the lineup. And you know what? And I think maybe by the start of the homestand on Tuesday, I think they might be cutting ties with Vogelbach. I really do.
Well, listen. There is a point that the Brute Force made. We spoke about it last week, and again, shout out to John Gonzalez of the Sports Authorities Group. I really want to thank John, though, all kidding aside there, because he was really pushing a lot of the interviews we had with the wrestlers these past couple days, and they really helped Sportswire get a lot of new followers and subscribers out there. So I want to thank John for that. All kidding aside here, and we have another big spot Sunday with a guy who has 31,000 subscribers, the Nemesis James Taylor. So I'm excited about that one, although the Nemesis has been on here. But the point is made. Yankees, right? They cut ties with Hicks, and the Mets, they've got this guy Vogelback. That's basically, he's dead weight. This guy, basically, he can't hit. Jake Guggenheimer would have a better chance up at bat when you guys had the Brew Crew. That's just, I'm not trying to knock on Jake Guggenheimer. But
at least he swings.
That's my point. How much longer can a team that's legitimately...
the salary was only $1.2 million for the $1.2 million for the season.
But you can't. But there is a point. You can't be a legitimate World Series contender if you have a guy like Daniel Vogelback in your lineup.
Here's the problem. Billy Epler brought him in last year to justify adding power to the designated hitter spot, which is the exact.
No, he gave moments last year. I would agree.
But that's the exact opposite of what he's been. Listen, I'm not gonna sit here and say Daniel Vogelbach's a terrible baseball player because he's really not. He does get on base a lot. He can get his occasional base hits, but that's not what we need. It's not the right fit for the team. We need him to hit for power, and he's not doing that. So he's not doing his job to what we need. And especially when he's taking his walks, it's a problem because he can't run. So the eye is great and all.
Right, but this sounds like he's a pinch hitter.
Second base.
Yeah, I got all that. But it goes back to the point again that if you're a World Series contender, he can't be in your lineup. He
Exactly.
sounds like a good. I agree with you. If you have him as a pinch hitter, you have him once a week. Like you talk about Nito, I'll give you that much. But this guy can't be on the team. I want to give a shout out. Speaking to our friends here out in the state of Michigan, I know the Brute Force might be not too happy about this. Our friends just outside of Detroit, our friends over at ROEW Backyard Wrestling. We just had on, of course, the day before Mr. Jack Delta, Destructive Jack Delta. We have on their champion next Sunday night, 7 p.m. Eastern Time, Jason Storm. And he says, good for you, Tom. You do it all. Keep it up, brother. And thank you to our friends over on YouTube. Go and follow the ROEW on ROEW Backyard Wrestling on YouTube and Instagram. But John Gonzalez has a question, which I want to let you guys address.
Here we go.
Next, former Yankee to come up Citi Field at the trade deadline, Aroldis Chapman. Mets are the favorite to land him. So what do you guys make of that? Rob Maraska, you're nodding.
Go ahead, Rob. Go ahead.
You know
I'll
what?
let him go first because I have thoughts.
After what he did last year to the Yankees at the end of the season, I do not want to see him in a New York Mets uniform. That's all I got to say. After what he did last year, no way. We don't need it. Don't even look at him. That's it.
Okay. And what do you say, Justin, before I go to the Brew Force?
You know what I say? I say,
Do
why
it,
the hell
right?
not? I say, why the hell not? Because the Met bullpen has so many question marks. Yes, Robertson and Ottavino have been a decent combination for the last couple innings of the game. Whether Robertson closes and Ottavino pitches the eighth, or vice versa. Robertson, like tonight, he pitched the eighth. Gave up a home run, but also, got the other three out. So he's through the eighth, and I think Ottavino's going to close. But, the goal is, and this is the whole reason why the Mets signed up Robertson in the first place, was to add length in that bullpen,
Right.
add depth, to protect Diaz. And obviously now without Edwin Diaz, David Robertson's really, and Adam Ottavino have really stepped into that co-closer's role. And not that Chapman would step into a closer's role. He wouldn't. Pitching him in the seventh inning, and like John said, he's been throwing 104. It does seem like the velocity is back. He's got good numbers this year. The whip is a little high to my liking at 1.3, but I don't know. I don't envision him costing much. That's why I would say, why the hell not?
And you know what? There is a theory, the Brute Force, that somebody that's been here in this town and has had some success. I mean, why not? I mean, if the Mets are going to be, as I just talked about, if they are, is what you want. You want them to be World Series contenders, and I'm sure you're going to have my ear tomorrow. You're going to make sure that I know loud and clear how you feel, and I got that. But is Aroldis Chapman somebody that helps the Mets get to where you'd like to be?
I'm not going to go that far. I'm not going to go that far and say this guy will revolutionize the team or anything like that. All right. But what I will say is that I'm kind of with Justin on this one. I mean, can I give you guys a few names so that you can understand? Brigham.
Fire away.
Brigham. Hunter. Leon. No offense because we like him on this show. Nagosic. Okay. Those are four guys right there. Nagosic, Leon, Brigham, and
Hunter. About Leon 2 weeks ago coming here. Steven Nagosic, who I interviewed. He's kind of the guy that gets thrown in there. How can I put it? Gets thrown in for our wrestling fans. Gets thrown in there in a match, basically where he's there to take it out.
I do got to stop Brad for 1 minute. The one name he needs to leave off of that list is Jeff Brigham. Jeff Brigham has been good for this team. The other names he mentioned, they've been. I don't want to see them again. Steven Nagosic, we can like him all he wants, but he needs to go sick. He's just not all that good. But and Leon, I don't want to see Leon ever again. By the way, Nemo's about to get a second triple of the game.
But I think the point you're making, Brad, is that these people are unimpressive.
Yeah, so basically the point, just to say it, is, I mean, there's three names on there that, you want to talk about dead weight. I'm not saying they're that bad like Vogelback, but they're not great. So why wouldn't you take a chance on a guy like Chapman who can throw, and I know, again, the track record recently is not good. And that's where Rob Moroska, I can't disagree. Okay. But with that being said, like, you give him a minor league contract and you take a chance. I wouldn't go against that. I would hope that maybe he could be better than Leone. He could be better than Nagosic. I mean, he's a lefty too, which would help. We only have Rayleigh in there who's doing a great job, obviously, but it wouldn't hurt to add a second guy who could throw 104 miles an hour. So I'd rather see that than Tommy Hunter. Like, that's just me.
And when it really boils down to it, and you look at this Met roster, what other trades are they really going to make? Because the lineup seems like it's going to be fine. You call the kids up. There's less holes in it.
Yeah, I think
Vientos. That's why I want to see more of Vientos now. Because if Vientos struggles, okay, maybe we can acquire somebody to play. To DH.
Well, here's the thing, and this is my last point quickly before we go to Tom. The other thing that has to be mentioned too, and you got to bring it into the equation too, and this is a big year, by the way. This is a big year. Okay, is can we trust Billy Epler to make those right moves? Okay, because you got Vogelback, who's been horrible. Darren Ruff, can I remind you guys of that name? Okay, can we trust him to make the right move? I'm hoping I can, but I don't know if I can.
Well, you also got to look at who, if you're going to make that big move, are you parting with a name like a Vientos, an Alvarez, a Mauricio down there? Are you parting with somebody?
Where is he, by the way? Where is he?
You know what? I would not be 100% stunned if Mauricio's in a deal. And that potentially may be why he's being held down in the minors as long as he has been. Because remember, out of the 4 kids, he's the one remaining. And, Beatty's established himself as the everyday third baseman. Alvarez has established himself as the catcher. The only way that these guys are going is if it's Ohtani. And, it's Ohtani or they're staying. So these guys are staying. Vientos is an interesting case just because he hasn't played a lot. But it really depends on who they're getting. If it's for a bullpen arm, then you're not going to need to trade any of your top prospects. But if it's for a big time power bat to maybe put at DH because maybe Vientos isn't as good as as we hoped, then you could see maybe a Mauricio getting involved in a deal, depending on what the remaining contract of said player looks like.
All right, couple different things here. I think, John, because I know I have a couple of wrestlers out there that are watching this. Just for you, Brad, you still want to match with Bad Bunny?
Whoever said I did. That's the question. Please, John. I'm going to start coming every week, Tom Rice, because, by the way, I have been paying attention to these wrestlers on the show. So
we had some big ones.
I'm going to start, doing things with John Gonzalez's name. So why don't we go Big Cheese against John Gonzalez? Why don't we do that or something? Like, why don't we do Omen Black against John Gonzalez? Let's start putting these things out there.
Well, Big Cheese, I have to say, Big Cheese posted on Facebook today. He actually posted almost like, I guess, with a quote. He posted talking about his old MMA days, if he should kind of return to that. So, you never know that Omen, if you saw how Omen addressed Craven Rage, and he's no chop liver.
Oh, that was something. That was crazy.
Yeah, a lot of people actually talk about this. So I guess you want John Gonzalez then in the ring. So you don't want to go in the ring. You want John Gonzalez in the ring.
The more John Gonzalez is trying to push me to do it, I feel like it's almost a signal that he wants to do it. You gotta think that way sometimes. He's pushing me, so maybe he's thinking he really wants to do it. So we might want to change the narrative here. That's all I'm trying to say.
Okay, all right, that's fair. Certainly, I'll let Mr. Gonzalez decide and speak for himself on that. He is here with us, and Chapman has been throwing 104. Chapman prefers the East Coast. Yeah, I definitely get all that here. All right, so those are fair points here. And I did want to bring up Pete Alonso very quickly before I do ask you guys some thoughts on the Yankees and some of the other things across, because I do want to get some scores up there for people out there in different places. I know I had some people messaging me from some different states right now off the air, and I appreciate you guys tuning in. But Pete Alonso had a chance here to tie Dave Kingman for the fastest start for a Met to hit 20 home runs in 50 games. So are we going to be speaking about Pete Alonso every week and maybe trying to replicate what Judge did last year, or can Pete Alonso continue to keep this up, or does he stop here now and come back to earth? What do you guys think about that?
I don't think he's going to stop here. I think, it's fun. And talking about Kingman real quick, that year, Kingman had a good chance of breaking Maris's record if he didn't break his thumb in the outfield. All right. He was headed. I mean, I saw that season, obviously.
Yeah.
Old, and loved him.
Yeah, 19 was in the New York Post today, 1976, right? That was
1976. I remember my father took me to Macy's because Kingman was signing autographs at Macy's. So
oh wow,
I went to Macy's and I got a autographed picture of him.
Okay, well, that's interesting. That's interesting.
But let's hope Alonso keeps it up. It's a lot of fun, and it would be great if he he gets close to Judge, and we have that excitement for the rest of this year. And people say, is he gonna break?
Well, so I'll phrase it then to Brad and Justin in a different way. Do the Mets need Alonso to continue on this pace in order for, as Brad has said, to be World Series contenders? Or if Alonso comes back to earth a little bit, Met lineup can still be okay? What do you guys both think about that?
Well, I mean, based on the way they go, they kind of need him. They've really needed every bit of those 19 home runs, that he's got so far. And I think he is going to continue on this torrid pace. It was just two short years after Judge had the historic rookie season of 52 home runs, in which Pete's rookie season he hits 53. So I mean, it seems like he's got a thing for trying to one up Judge, and he's off to a great start right now, and there's every chance he goes into the All-Star break with, who knows, 30, 35 home runs.
Yeah, I was going to say 30, maybe 32.
May 26th, and he's got,
8 weeks, but maybe 8 weeks.
He's got at least another 4 games before, to get to 20 before June 1st.
Right, and then to the All-Star break, we've got about 8 weeks. I want to say just about 8 weeks.
Yeah, I think it's like the 14th or 15th of July, something like that.
Yeah.
So
okay.
You got the whole month of June and part of July before the All-Star break, and look, Pete's a guy, knock on wood, plays every single day. He's in that lineup, and he's been very consistent, with his home runs this year.
For you, Brad, I mean, again, you're the guy that phrased the coin here. Mets have to be World Series contenders. Does Alonso have to have this torrid pace to continue for the Mets to keep up at it, or he cools off, this team can still be okay? What do you think on that?
So I do think that they need him to continue to hit home runs at a high rate, because – I mean, where else are you getting the power from?
Top-heavy lineup, right? It's a very top. Lindor, maybe Lindor.
Yeah, but you can't depend on that. And again, this is where we get back to that point again. Not to bring his name because I don't want to talk about him anymore. Okay, but guys like Vogelback who are supposed to be here as power hitters and to help that, and that's not what they do. So he's really the guy to do it. And again, I think that at some point he's also putting a lot of pressure on himself to hit home runs. And I think teams are going to also, as the Mets, we're hoping that guys stay consistent like the Beatties of the world and, McNeil and all them. But what about when they start struggling? They're going to start pitching around Alonso. They're going to start making other guys beat them, and that would really concern me as well. And the other thing that I'm a little concerned with, not a lot, but Alonso's hitting home runs, and that's great. But he's not, he's not hitting for average. And that's telling me that basically it's a home run. I know he's got a few other hits or bust. And, I just think that's not a great success formula either. Again, would it be great for the Mets? Sure. I know if he's hitting home runs like this, the Mets will stay. But just think about this, Tom. Wouldn't you have believed at the beginning of the season that if Pete Alonso had this many home runs that the Mets wouldn't be a 500 team?
I would have said to you, so today, let's leave aside the outcome of tonight's game. If you would have said to me, Alonso has, 19 home runs and like 40, 43, 44 RBIs, I would have said the Mets would probably be, I'd say 32 and 19. That a fair statement?
And that sounds about right, especially with the schedule that they've had playing against.
Schedule's not been that difficult, other than the West Coast trip. I mean, and the
No,
Braves series.
you Cincinnati Reds, Detroit Tigers, Oakland Athletics.
Chris Padilla called them today. He called them the Cincinnati Reds are the National League version of the Oakland A's with only a little better hitting. I thought that was a really good analogy.
I mean, all these teams you've been playing, right?
Tigers have played okay, a little better. Cubs stink. Cubs got shut out by the Reds. You mentioned the Reds. The Rockies, we saw them a couple weeks ago.
And these are all these teams you can't beat in series. So, the fact that Alonso's having the season that he's having already with the home run, and they're still just a 500 team, really, really concerns me. But I will say that I do believe he'll continue the pace, which will keep the Mets in the conversation as a playoff team. But again, it's going to really rely on those guys around him. If they're not hitting well, Alonso's not going to get pitches to hit. It's just as simple as that. And again, I would like to see his batting average go up as well, and I think that requires more than just hitting home runs.
Hey, Tom, I have a question for the guys and you. I'm interested. If Alonso keeps up the pace for the next month and a half to 2, do you guys want to see him in the home run derby?
Yeah, I don't think it messes with him. I really don't because he's won it a couple times already, and he participated in it last year. I feel like it doesn't really mess up his swing.
Okay.
So I really don't have an issue with it. And one thing that Brad said, the reason why this team's a 500 team is because their starting pitching's been awful. Mm-hmm. And you've run through the gauntlet of the guys like McGill and Peterson and Jose Buto and Joey Lucchesi. Now that it finally feels like they have their solid 5, and who knows, maybe we do see Jose Quintana post All-Star break. Now that it seems that the Mets have their solid starting 5, you are starting to see the results start to pan out, and the Mets are playing better baseball. They have won 6 of 8, going into tonight's game. So you do see some better baseball because they're just pitching better. I think the lineup will be okay because Beatty's been pretty good, and he's been the one protecting Pete in the 5 spot, and I think that's been one of the better formulas for getting Pete pitches to hit. And listen, he is a true slugger, so if he has a year where he hits 230, 240, it's just not going to surprise me because that's just kind of who he is. I know we've gotten used to him hitting maybe more 260, 270, but he might just have one of those years where it's just going to be mostly just all power.
Right. And if the Mets win, we're not going to talk about it, obviously. I'm just, that's just more of a comment. But I do agree with Justin. Obviously, the pitching has been a big reason. To answer Rob's question, I think if this was Alonso's first home run derby, then I would be kind of cautioning right now. But he's got experience. He's got a sample size. And the sample size says that he's been able to handle it and not really affect his swing or anything he does. So, no, I wouldn't really mind, honestly. I think most Mets fans would want to see that. And I hate to say it, if the Mets continue as a 500 team, that might be the most exciting part of the season for Mets fans, watching him in the home run derby again.
Well, I would slightly disagree because, again, of the wild card that the Mets will always be in it because, to me, the National League Central in the New York Post, they were talking about teams that might be traders, might be buyers, sellers, and, I mean, almost everybody in the Central's in it. I mean, you've got the West.
Last year proved anything, it's just getting into the postseason.
Right, and I think again,
we had
500 this year might get
win
you in
teams.
the playoffs.
We had 2 80-something win teams in the National League Championship Series, and the 3 100 win teams were all out by the end of the National League Division Series. So, to be honest, if you're telling me the Mets win 87 games and make it to the World Series, I'll sign up for that. Then the Mets going on a tear in July and August end up with 100 wins and flame out again in the first
round. You know what, those sports, what we've learned this year is that in sports, right, the NHL, the Florida Panthers, make the playoffs last week, and they're in the Stanley Cup. The NBA, the Miami Heat, well, they might have been a phony 8-seed play-in team. They're obviously they got to still win one more game, but they are where they are. So if you get into the postseason, it doesn't really matter. So ultimately, it's up to Alonso, and we'll see where the Mets are. Let's see where he goes in the next 6
months. So the Panthers were the 8 seed. They're in the Eastern Conference. They're in the Stanley Cup Finals. The Heat could be in the finals. They're an 8th seed. The Phillies were the 6th and final seed
Yep.
and got to the World Series. So I mean, these last couple of years, Super Bowl obviously not. The Chiefs got there, Eagles got there. They were pretty much the two best teams. Collision course that worked itself out for the number one teams. But the in basketball, baseball, and hockey, I mean,
I don't think it matters as
these
much in
lower
sports
seeds
anymore.
being
I
able
don't
to
think
make it.
I don't think it matters because at the end of the day, when you play in the regular season, it's again like Anthony Finkel says, it's not how you start, it's how you finish. And Anthony Finkel is here. We say
Yeah,
hello to him. The
exactly.
Napa entered the
What's up,
chat.
big thing?
Yeah. So obviously we'll see him tomorrow. But I mean, the fact of the matter is that again, look, Mets win 100+ games, they're out, right? We had the Braves, they were out. We had the Cardinals, was hottest team of anybody, they were knocked out early. You had conversely in the American League, right?
Well,
Yankees
the
win.
Dodgers had the best regular season in franchise history.
I was getting to that
111
next.
wins, wiped out by the Padres.
Yeah,
Can I just say this, Tom? Also,
Sure.
because obviously, the one thing we've been talking about is that the Mets have really struggled against bad teams, and they've actually came up and played the good teams pretty well.
Dodgers.
I'd like to see that in the next couple of weeks because guess who they have on the schedule?
Phillies, Blue Jays coming up the next week.
And the Braves coming up after that. So this is when I really would like to see them step up to the plate and start to get, further past 500. If we're talking about this team, still around 500, I'm still going to have my Purgatorian way of talking. And that's, again, I'd like to miss the conference again.
But I will say that again, just because the National League is what it is this year, 500, you ain't going to be out by a long shot.
And think about this. The team, just like the Mets, with all this expectation and all this payroll, has been just as disappointing. And maybe because we're in the New York area, we're talking about the Mets, and we're focusing on the Mets more because
Right.
the three of us, all of us here, are Mets fans. But the Padres have been just as disappointing. And guess what? They played up to the competition tonight. They beat the Yankees 5-1. And
they're 24 and 27.
Yankee fans are taunting Fernando Tatis, and then he goes and hits a moonshot.
Yeah, they're 24 and 27.
They've been bad.
Yeah,
they've been bad.
They lost the series to the Royals not too long ago. I mean, for all this talk about the Mets, at the end of the day, the Mets at least are above water. And, the Cardinals, right, who've been played much better. But the Cardinals got off to a start we spoke about a couple weeks ago. That was a start they hadn't had since, I think, Ford was president or something like that, 1976 or something, whatever it was. I mean, like in the Cardinals, again, they haven't won as many World Series as the Yankees, but I mean, they've been almost as good for as long. I mean, they haven't won as many World Series, like I said. But
I mean, they do have the most of any National League team.
Yep, because they're always good. I mean, like I said, we had a stat. We spoke about it when we spoke about this about 3 weeks ago. The Cardinals, I think, have only had one losing season the last quarter century. Two losing seasons. So it's they are not in this spot here. But some scores of note that I'd like to give people here if you're around the world. Cincinnati shuts out the Cubs 9-0. Rays 9, Dodgers 3. Cannot figure out the Chicago White Sox. They're kind of starting to maybe turn it on here a little bit. 12-3 over the Tigers. Rangers, maybe they're here to stay. 12-2 over the Orioles. Orioles obviously.
That's a team we got to talk about.
We're going to talk about them certainly. Padres 5, Yankees 1. Guardians do find a way to get one over the Cardinals, 4-3. Phillies, your beloved Phillies, the brute force 6. Struggling Braves, by the way, 4. Braves are struggling. Giants 15, Brewers 1. Almost, I guess it was 49ers Packers earlier this year, right? Could be a potential early 23 season there. Blue Jays 3, Twins 1. Blue Jays were in the basement going into today in the AL East, and Royals 10, Nationals 12. So I guess an early Commanders Chiefs first quarter maybe score there, 12-10 there. Nationals over the Royals.
That ain't gonna be the score.
We're trying to basically compare it to the NFL here, but I have Mets 5, Rockies 2, bottom of the 9th. Marlins 3, Angels 1, bottom of the 6th. Angels have played very well of late. You have the Astros 5, the Oakland A's nothing. Oakland obviously for what they are. Red Sox 5, Diamondbacks 1. Struggling Pirates 4. Mariners, another team. Well, they've played a little better of late. Have been also big underachievers. They're down 4-2 from the Mariners here in the top of the 5th. Standings here of note: Rays 38-15. They've gotten track here a little bit. Orioles 4 games behind, 33-18. Yankees 30-23. Red Sox and Blue Jays both 26-24, 27-25. Though that's going to change. Twins 26-25 and in first place. You want to again, Brad? Anything can happen this year. Tigers 2 games back. Guardians and all of a sudden the White Sox only 5 games back. You never know there. 5 games back. And as Justin pointed out, the Texas Rangers 32-18, 3.5 ahead of the Astros. Angels 4.5 behind. Mariners 6 behind. Oakland, let's not even go there. We have in the National League, Braves 31-20. Although Mets, if they get the W here, would now be 4.5 back. So the Mets are kind of hanging in there. Marlins are under 500 now, 25-26. Phillies 7 back. Nationals 9.5. Brewers 27-24. Pirates 25-24. Well, that is going to certainly change tonight. Cubs 4.5 back. Cardinals very much alive, and so are the Reds 5 back. And how about those Diamondbacks? Only 1 game behind going into play tonight here with the Dodgers. Dodgers get the loss, so there is a potential here that could be a half a game difference between those teams. And the Giants, Brad, the real team I think is the real purgatory team is the San Francisco Giants because they are 26-25, 4.5 games back, and that's going to change. They'll get a victory here because they're up 15-1 over the Brewers, so they're 27-25, and then you got the Padres and Rockies behind. So I mean, a lot to digest there. And Justin, I'll bring it up then. I'll go to the Texas Rangers. I mean, I guess we've been kind of waiting for this team to kind of drop off, and they're 14 games over 500 with about a third of the season in. So you start looking at the calendar now because you're in Memorial Day, and I would say that the Texas Rangers might be here to stay.
Yeah, I think it's time to. I think it's time we buy stock in the Texas Rangers. I know they've been missing DeGrom for the last close to a month or so, but their offense, it might be the best offense in baseball, and they're scoring 10 runs almost every night. I think I saw something where they've already had double digit games where they scored 10 or more runs. I mean, they've been unbelievable, and the fact that already their run differential is a league leading plus 122 with they've scored 322 runs, which is just 3 more than the Rays for the most in baseball.
And I think they took over the Rays in run differential because the Rays lost.
The Rays had that 20. The Rays had that 20-1 loss a couple nights ago to the Blue Jays, so that kind of put a dent in their numbers. But the Rangers. I mean, if you're not paying attention to some of these guys, you need to pay attention to Adolis Garcia, who's got 14 home runs and a league-leading 49 RBIs. Josh Jung with 11 home runs, 35 RBIs. And Corey Seager, who's been back just recently from a hamstring issue, hit a grand slam tonight. And their lineup is just – there's really no easy out in that Texas lineup. And, Jonah Heim's been good. You've gotten good production out of Marcus Semien actually has a 296 batting average. He's usually a very low batting average kind of guy. 8 home runs, 40 RBIs. Jonah Heim, 33 RBIs. I mean, they're getting contributions up and down the lineup, and it's time we are to pay attention to the Texas Rangers and understand that they're not going anywhere. And if Houston wants to repeat as division champs, they got their work cut out for them. And I know the Astros have played a lot better lately, and the Angels have been pretty good this year too. The
Angels, I guess you're kind of waiting for what to make of them still. I was listening to
I don't like the Angels. I don't like the Angels bullpen. Their starting pitching's been pretty good. That's why they're kind of floating above water. Obviously Trout and Ohtani have been terrific. Hunter Renfroe's been good for the Angels. They just got Jared Walsh back from the injured list, so they're going to get some good offensive production out of first base. This Zach Neto has been very, very good for the Angels at the top of their order. So their lineup is looking strong.
Let me ask you one thing on the Texas Rangers. And I'm curious, and how much of a difference do you think that a Bruce Bochy has made there? You think about a manager like that in his experience. Does that make that much of a difference as to why they've played certainly well above what anybody expected of them? And what's your opinion on that?
I think
about
there
that.
is. I think there's a subtle difference. I don't think it's as big as people might make it out to be. And I don't want to take anything away from Bruce Bochy. This is a multiple-time World Series winning manager with the San Francisco Giants. But this lineup is their lineup is just so destructively
I mean, they've got
powerful.
everybody. It's got what 20, 30 RBIs each. They got,
Exactly, and I
7.
just rattled off all the guys with 30 plus RBIs: Garcia, Heim, Seager. All these guys have.
Young, right? Josh Young, you mentioned also.
Yeah,
Did you
Josh
mention
Jones
that?
had a tremendous year, and if I'm not mistaken, I think still holds rookie status. So look for him to potentially be in the rookie of the year ballot. But yeah, I can't say there's no impact. I do think that there's an impact that Bruce Bochy has. And I think it's just the veteran leadership of him and the veterans that they have in the room. Like a DeGrom, Andrew
And the
Haney,
pitching's been
Nate
good.
Eovaldi.
Evaldi's pitched very well for them. Yep.
Yep. So I think there's veterans all around the room. Corey Seager, Marcus Semien. So I think it's a good, well-rounded club, and I think he does keep a calming presence in that clubhouse. Kind of like how Buck kept a calming presence last year. I still think the clubhouse, despite them being kind of teetering off 500, the clubhouse has been pretty calm this year. So I think it does make a difference, but I don't want to overblow it.
I want to ask Brad this question because Brad would know. Brad, you played for a couple of different coaches, and obviously they weren't Bruce Bochy. We love Mike McSloy on Sportswire, but he wasn't quite Bruce Bochy, although he did turn around the Golden Eagles, and certainly Kevin Spann certainly spoke for himself in different ways. But, I mean, does that make a difference? You have a guy like Bruce Bochy, wins 3 World Series, went to another with the Padres. I mean, for all intents and purposes, one of the greatest managers of all time before one of your friends here says hello. I mean, does it make that much of a difference having a presence like that kind of maybe makes you play a certain way?
Yes. Especially when you're the Texas Rangers. Because last time I checked, I mean, this was a team that really wasn't doing a whole lot. And some of these younger guys have been on the roster for a few years. Talk about Garcia.
Heim's been there. We know Joe Heim.
Those are guys who have been on the team and, aren't bad players, but, under Bruce Bochy's tutelage, they're taking a big step up. And I know that people would say, well, Brad, it was their time to do it now. They've had the experience now. But I think there's something to say about having a manager who's won multiple World Series before, who knows what it takes to win, who brought in a staff of winners as well. I mean, Bruce Bochy.
I don't think it would motivate you. I just think it would give you
100%. I mean, I was going to go on a few different points. One with just the fact of his track record, but really, again, his wisdom, what he brings to the table when it comes to that, and also his leadership. Because you can only imagine a guy like that is a great leader of men. And I think that when you have a great leader of men who has a voice in the clubhouse, who's demanding a lot of your players, which he seems to be that type of manager, I think it lifts you, it motivates you. And I think these players, when you look at them, look like very motivated players right now, playing at a very high level, not afraid of the Houston Astros or any other team that's in their way. They're just playing good baseball as a team. And again, this is a team that nobody expected to be there, but I think Bruce Bochy might even use that as motivation for these guys to play at a higher level. And I think that, again, when you have a guy like Bochy who's been in San Francisco for all these years, right? They were always the little guy to the Dodgers, but they still found ways to win World Series.
Hey, they won 3 World Series, and the Dodgers in that time frame only won 1. I mean,
right, and I believe the Dodgers, almost every year winning the division anyway, but the Giants still figured it out. And I think that same mindset is coming in with the Rangers, and they're playing, way above what they were supposed to. And again, I think that gives a lot of credit to the manager and what he's brought in from a leadership standpoint, from his, expertise and his baseball knowledge, and just the mindset of the players changing. They kind of went from a team, we're young, we could build a decent roster, to, we're pretty good, and we have a manager that knows what it takes to be pretty good. And that's what their confidence level and the way that they're going about their business is totally different.
No question about that, but I actually do want to get to somebody that would like to say hello to you, the Brute Force, Brad Weiss, and his name is actually Mr. Omen Black. You have heard of him. He's the IMF champion of the world. He's actually here right before a big title defense tomorrow here at our friends over at the IMF. Go to IMF Wrestling 666. They'll have the show up here probably before our show Tuesday with Felix Jones, although Mr. Black, not exactly a ally of Mr. Jones, but certainly I'm sure he'll tune in, plus some others. But IMF_wrestling on Instagram as well. And he says, Brute Force in caps locks. One of these times, we got to get on the show together sometime. Now, the Brute Force by Wise, I know you're a big man, and obviously you're 6'5", but Omen Black is, I mean, this was a guy that was throwing wrestlers through tables last weekend, and you saw what he did to Craven Rage here, and certainly Mr. Rage was trying his best to keep up with the champion, but, would that make you afraid? Would that make you tread lightly? Would you be comfortable seeing Mr. Black one day in person? How would that make you feel?
Listen, being on a show with Owen Black would be quite the pleasure and honor because you're talking about a champion. I mean, if I'm on a show with a champion, I think I'm doing pretty well. But with that being said, listen, certainly I would have to make sure I was on top of my game because Omen's definitely a guy that will expose your weaknesses. That's for sure.
Well, I tell you what, he can talk.
If you say something that gets a little feisty with Omen, he's going to come back at you. He's going to throw that hammer on you. So with that being said, I mean, listen, me and Omen are boys. I love Omen. I support him. I love the way he goes about his business when he's on the show and obviously in the ring. He seems to be someone that no one can mess with at all. So
yeah, he's got all those things. Yeah.
I love everything about Omen. His confidence, the way he talks, the way he gets under other people's skin. I love it. So I would have the ultimate pleasure of talking to him being on the show. We'd have to find something to talk about, though.
Well, I was wondering, since something to talk about, and we'll come back to baseball in a second, but I was curious because you mentioned John Gonzalez's name. Do you feel that Mr. Black, would you like him to confront Mr. Gonzalez? Is that really what you feel?
Well, what's funny about that is actually a great question. What's funny about that is that, me and Omen are boys, and if Omen watches this show, that the guy who picks on me no more than anybody else is John Gonzalez. So, I think, Omen could definitely have a few things to say to John Gonzalez, especially about some of the things he comes up with, with accusing me with the Herrick's win and the one with the towel in Miami that he still won't get over. I mean, I think Omen Black would have something to say to John Gonzalez about that. And, he may, I think he'll come to my defense. So, yeah, I do think he could say a few things to John Gonzalez. That's for sure.
Well, Mr. Black has certainly responded here, and he says, Craven Rage couldn't lace my boots or keep up with me on the mic. Well, that's certainly, I'm going to let Mr. Rage and Mr. Black decipher that out, but I think the people who watched, and a lot of people did on different platforms, they obviously probably would have the answer that would mostly be what Mr. Black would feel. Brute Force, I'm a fan of yours and enjoy every time you're on, and I think this is for Mr. Gonzalez. Who do I got to make bleed? Oh, poor John. And I would remind people that Omen Black is from the same hometown as Slipknot, and they had a famous song called Wait and Bleed. So certainly Mr. Black likes to make people bleed. But, I'll come back to baseball because I realize we've got some of the guys here, and they're kind of like, huh? But, speaking of teams that were disappointments, I mentioned subtly, and I'll go to Rob Maraska and the Seattle Mariners. And, obviously the Padres Justin touched upon, and the Padres, I agree, they've been big underachievers. They are in the National League, so they'll get the benefit of the doubt for as long as possible because, we've given the Mets the same benefit of the doubts. But the Seattle Mariners are struggling right now, losing against the Pirates, and they're pretty much, other than the Oakland A's, at the bottom of this American League West. Texas has played above expectations. Angels playing a little better, and Houston's in the mix, although they've had some injuries. We expect them to pick it back up, but where do you fall on the Mariners before I come back to Justin and the Brute Force?
Well, the Mariners are a little disappointing right now, and they've been playing a little better. But looking at that whole Western division of the American League, it's except for the Oakland A's, it's a pretty good division this year.
Yeah, I mean, Texas 32-18 beats the Orioles tonight. Who the Orioles, right? I mean, everybody's saying, Baltimore's going to drop, and and I think Baltimore's penciled them as a playoff team. And you spoke about the Angels, we spoke about them, and Justin made some points on them. And Houston's, by the way, the World Series champion. So yeah, it's a good division, other than Oakland.
Yeah, and everyone except for Oakland is over 500. Oakland's only won 10 games. I mean,
Well,
that's
I think Oakland, we might have to talk about whether they'll lose the major league record of games here this year because they're on that pace. I mean, we're going to have to
they're on
start,
the pace. They're on the
Gary and
pace
Keith
for
were
the
talking about that
62
tonight on the
Mets.
SNY broadcast.
Yep.
I don't even know if they win like 35 games because what are they 10-40? They're going to be 10-43. So if you do the math, right?
Yeah.
They're going to come out to winning about, I would say, 32 games. I mean, that's embarrassing.
It's embarrassing, and it's ridiculous.
That's like for Omen Black. That's like Nicholas Crenson in championship matches for our wrestling fans. I mean, I don't want to go there, but that's kind of how bad the Oakland A's are. They just really. I mean, I don't know. I mean, I should probably ask the guys this. I mean, Justin. I mean, since you brought it up as well with like Gary and Keith, where I mean, the Mariners obviously. Rob makes a point. They're around. They'll hang into it most likely. You have to give them benefit of the doubt. Kind of like teams like the Padres, certainly on Mets. But does Oakland lose the major league record for games this year, or what?
I don't know how they don't. I mean, this team literally can't win a baseball game. I mean,
it's like embarrassing. Like Harlem Globetrotters,
I don't think
like almost.
We've really not seen anything like this in our lifetimes, and
maybe the 03 Tigers who won like
Yeah,
the last like 3 or
bad.
4 games. They were
yeah,
bad.
because I think they ended up 43 and
119. I think they swept the last series of the season, if I'm not mistaken.
I think you're right. I think you're right. I remember that famously being the year Mike Maroth lost like 21 games or something like that for the Tigers. But yeah, I don't know. But I can't see them. I can't see the A's get to 40. I really can't. And you're talking about 30 wins in the next 4 months of the season.
They've won 10 so far. I mean, it's
10 in the first 2+ months of the year. So I don't know. I don't think so.
I'm gonna know. I don't know. It's a good bet you might have.
But talking about, bring it back to the Mariners a little bit.
Sure.
You know what? I might be higher on them than most because they were my World Series pick.
Yeah,
from the
you were
American
very
League.
high on them, and understandably so.
They've gotten some really disappointing years from certain guys. Julio Rodriguez is only batting .230, 8 homers, 24 RBIs.
Amazing year last year. We spoke about.
Ty France, he hit a couple home runs last night, but 5 home runs, 23 RBIs.
I was gonna say, yeah.
The production's not really been there. Cal Raleigh's batting average is down to 232. But for a catcher, 7 home runs, 24 RBIs, you'll take that. The one nice surprise that they've gotten this year is it seems that Jared Kelenic figured things out.
Yeah, I was listening to that on MLB radio this week, and they were talking about how
25 RBIs. He leads the team in home runs, leads second in RBIs behind Eugenio Suarez. I worry about their pitching. They lost Robbie Ray for the season.
Yep, big loss.
I do trust Castillo to pitch well, but I'm pretty concerned about their starting pitching. George Kirby's been okay. Marco Gonzalez has not been good. There's a lot of concerns with the Mariners right now, and especially in a tough division. Like Rob mentioned, the 4 teams other than the A's are over 500. It's almost like the AL East in a way, where the AL East is all 5 teams over 500. So
yep.
It's going to be the problem is that they're in the American League, and it's going to be more of a dogfight, right?
Right. Whereas in the National
League,
League,
harder to tread water, and they need to go on a run.
Whereas in the National League, really, I think everybody's practically in it. I mean, even the Nationals technically aren't like eliminated right now. I mean, almost everybody. I mean, even the Reds and Cardinals are not even 6 games back. I mean, and the Cardinals got off to the horrible start. The Rockies we spoke about. I mean, so all of the National League, you're pretty much in it. You're alive here. But the Brute Force, before I ask you this question, actually, Mr. Black actually had a hot take for you. First of all, he says that's why I'm a fan. I mentioned the Slipknot reference, and obviously I know where the Wayne Gray treatment comes from, and I do have a background in music, so that's kind of why you may get that hot take. He also says, thanks, Brute, for allowing me to do a hot take, and he comes to Mr. Rage because obviously he treated him like a clown, and he also wants to point out the Wolves are inevitable, and they are certainly invincible when it comes to gold. But I'm curious, Brad, because I obviously for Omen's probably going to hear this for the first time. You've played on some, how can I put it, not so good college basketball teams that I got to cover. Now, I don't think from a winning percentage point they were exactly like the 2023 Oakland A's, but they were pretty close. I mean, so as a player, do you know that you could be maybe facing some history the other way, and does it demotivate you? Does it play? You're already in a ballpark where you have pretty much like probably more people at the IMF shows than an Oakland A's baseball game. I mean, you certainly are playing in front of flies, in front of nobody. I mean, how do you go about this here? And does it actually demotivate you or motivate you to chase history for the wrong way? And what do you think of all that?
Yeah, well, first of all, since Omen's here, let me give him a hot take right away before I get to your question and say it with my chest because, I'm the guy that likes to give predictions and, things. So I'm going to say it, Tom Bryce. I'm not going to hesitate. The Oakland Athletics will lose the most games in Major League history. They will do it.
Wow.
And they will win the least amount of games. I think that they're destined for it. The best thing going for them, by the way, I saw a re-rendering today of their proposed stadium in Las Vegas. It's very nice. Very nice. So,
Yes,
so that's the one thing going for them. But what I will say to answer your question, Tom, it's an interesting thing that goes on when you're not winning and when you're not winning at a pretty rapid rate. Because, there are those thoughts in your head about, oh, well, we might go and end up being a really, really bad team and set a record on the bad side. There is that thought in your head. But I think what gets in the way of that and why players still play with confidence and motivation is because a lot of those guys, especially on the Athletics, Tom, are fighting for their jobs. They're fighting for a job in some sort of organization or their organization. Like they're just trying to play Major League Baseball and continue to play Major League Baseball because a lot of those guys, right, this could be their career. Like this could be their only chance. And ultimately, when it came to us at St. Joe's, right, me and other guys, we're playing, to be great players and get to be able to be on the team the next year. Or so some guys, who ended up leaving to go somewhere else to play well at another college. So that motivation doesn't change even though you're not winning. Obviously, when it comes to team goals, it becomes a tough thing to motivate players when you're losing at this rate to win as a team. But individually, I think players still get that motivation because of the fact that they need to perform to keep their job. Sure. They need to perform to get to another team, hopefully. Some of them are probably praying they get traded at the deadline or something, even though most of them ain't going to happen. So listen, that's the one thing with that. But again, when it comes to a team goal, when it comes to they're 10-42 right now. I mean, They don't have a team goal, besides win the next day, hopefully.
Well, I just thought it was so fascinating to ask you because, again, I covered the 1920 team, which was a little better than the 1819 team, but you played on, those two teams. It was like, we weren't going anywhere. It wasn't like the last two St. Joe's teams.
But
they were good. We were fun, excited.
The difference, though, I will say one difference between our teams and their teams is that even though we were struggling, Tom, we felt confident that we could beat a lot of the teams that we played. It wasn't like, we walked into Farmingdale thinking that we couldn't win or we didn't have a chance. Or we had a chance and we believed it.
A lot of those games.
I think the Athletics, honestly, just watching them play baseball, they don't go
just have the forfeit rule. I mean, I almost just say forfeit. I mean, and
on top of that, I'm not saying we had a world of fans at the Danzy Center, but it can't help you when you go to home games and you're playing in a dump with no fans, with nothing to motivate you at all. I mean, it's got to be an absolutely brutal experience. I mean, that's one thing that I can't attest to when it comes to losing. At least we still had fans in the seats, people still cheering us on. Go Golden Eagles. There's nobody, cheering for the Athletics. There's nobody, at those games. You're playing in a place that is just, at least the Danzy Center is a great place to go play. And
I always thought the Danzy Play Center, even to watch online, as I have these last 3
it's a great, it's a great gym. It's a nice place to be. The Athletics, there's not even their clubhouse is a nice place to be. It's just
I remember when we had the Pinstripe Chronicles guys on, when they were doing the shows with us. I think it was what's his name? Rob Barros had mentioned, and Evan, who was with them at the time. I know he's not with them anymore, but they had talked about going to Oakland. They said that place is like a dump. It's like a monstrosity. And, some of the guys here mentioned it also. And, it's just, I mean, I just don't know how you'd be motivated. I mean, to go in.
The only motivation is individual and motivation to stay in the league. That's the only motivation that's happening with the A's because there's no other motivation to have. There's no team.
It's almost like those Lions teams years back that were, going for the, winless season. It's
but at least you could go into Ford Field and feel like you're playing in a nice place and somewhere where you want to walk. I mean, I can't imagine being a player and like walking up to the Coliseum and be like, "Oh, I'm excited to play here today." Like, there's no excitement. No one's going to be there. It's ugly. There's not a lot. The only thing that motivates you is I want to play in the major leagues. I want to get another chance. That's the only.
That's still something. I mean, I guess that's still the point that you still have to hang your head on. I'm a Major League Baseball player. I'm getting a high 6-figure check to 7-figure check. I mean, I think that's got to still be.
So here's the real question.
Okay.
Do they break the record for the most losses? Which obviously in the modern era is the 62 Mets, 120. Yeah. The most losses ever is the Cleveland Spiders of 1899. They went 20 and 134.
Don't even count those. I have an interesting.
But
you said 130. You said 134.
The lowest winning percentage in the modern era was the 1916 Philadelphia A's. They were 36 and 117. That's a 235 winning percentage, which is lower.
And what are they? 10 and 42 now. They lose tonight. 10 and 43. That puts them at a 26 and 74 clip. I mean, that's. It's. Yeah.
Tom, I just want to say something quick. On May 26th, okay, that's what today is, May 26th. The 1962 New York Mets were 12 and 25, okay? That was their record. Today, the Oakland A's are 10 and 43.
So the Mets had to play a lot of doubleheaders, you're saying then?
Well, and remember, the season started later back then.
I was going to say, when did the season start? Because that's not a lot of games.
37 games. I mean, I would think doubleheaders, right? A lot of them would.
Yeah, they played a lot of doubleheaders, of course, in the 60s. So, yes, that's one of the reasons. And they didn't start until the second week in April. But think about that. The 62 Mets were 12 and 25 on May 26th, and the Oakland A's are 10 and 43.
Yeah, and I think
that answers my question right now because I wanted to know what was the Mets record after fifth. Because forget where this date in the season. I'm talking about number of games, right? Obviously, you already said they were 12. They were 12 and 26 or something, and so that's already more wins than what the A's have in 52 games. So
yeah, the Mets played 37 games. In the same, and the Oakland's played 52. So I mean,
and I'll give you another one. I'll give you.
So my question is, when the Mets got to game 52 that year, what was their record?
That's a good question.
Well, I'll give you one. I'll give you the most recent one. On May 26th was the Detroit Tigers, and on this date they were 13 and 36, and they were 13 and 39 through 52 games. So
I got an answer for Justin. The Mets were 15 and 37.
So they're 5 wins ahead of the pace. They're 5 wins ahead of the A's pace.
Yes.
Okay. All right. Well,
that's pretty crazy.
Omen Black would like to point out that he's a Cardinals fan, so he doesn't care about the A's. So, yeah, a lot of people aren't going to care about the A's. There really isn't going to be many Oakland A's fans these days. And certainly it's a franchise that's going elsewhere. And even when the Expos were moving from Montreal, they were nowhere near this bad. In fact, they were actually, competitive. And you have here the A's, and it's just, again, a franchise that, we spoke about this before. Before I move on, ask the Brew Force something before we get to closing thoughts. Obviously, I'm going to ask you, Brad, on the NBA for your hot take. But, I mean, you think about the Oakland A's just about 4 or 5 years ago. This was a franchise that was regularly in the postseason, had some great teams. And, now look at how far they've fallen. And just, I would hate to be the person that is like a ticket rep and trying to sell season ticket packages. Because what do you sell season tickets for? What do you sell packages for? You have that job. You have to go out there and do that, and you're not going to get anybody to buy those packages. So that's kind of
nobody's going out there to go see Shea Langoliers.
You just answered my question. So if I'm in the ticket box office there, front office, whatever it might be you call it, in sales, I would certainly have the worst job right now. But Brad, I did want to ask you before I get to closing thoughts here, and I mean, what do you make of the NBA playoffs? Certainly, the Denver Nuggets made short work of the Los Angeles Lakers and go to the NBA Finals for the first time in history. But I was listening to Charles Barkley after the Celtics had won Game 4, and he said actually something interesting, that if Boston, which they had won yesterday, that Game 6 coming up, it would almost be like Game 7, because Miami going back, it would almost be like they couldn't win that game. So I'm gonna get your thoughts on that comment and kind of where we are here in the NBA playoffs before we sign off tonight here, because obviously we know the Nuggets, but maybe, just maybe, your old friend and nemesis of ours, Alec Willis, and maybe even our other buddy Matt Hurt, maybe they have something to smile about here after all. What do you think?
Oh, I'm hoping that's not the case. I don't want to hear from them that they were the worst thing that could happen to a New York Knicks fan or anybody from New York is to hear that the Celtics did something else, that they can hold on to, which is the first team ever to come from a 3-0 series lead and win the series. With that being said, ladies and gentlemen, that is not happening. And I know that, everybody's going and saying, oh, well, Boston's got their groove back there. They're doing great things. Yeah, they're playing better. They had a good second half against Miami, and they played a good game in Boston in Game 5. With that being said, Miami, in both games, the turnovers absolutely did them in. They turned the ball over. Bam Adebayo and Jimmy Butler are not playing up to their normal level of play. And I just think that, at this point after these, the second half was a little bit of a shock to the Heat, but the Celtics, give them credit. And I think that the Celtics just played a good, complete game in Game 5. Miami's going to respond. They have all playoffs long. You've seen it. They've been in this situation before where they,
well, the Knicks came back and won Game 5, so it's fair play.
Yeah, they've been in this situation before, and I know people are like, oh, well, Boston's better than the Knicks and better than whoever that's. But sure. But Miami has been tested before. They're not going to lose 4 straight games to the same team. I said it last week when Owen Black was on the show, and I said my hot take was the Miami Heat were going to win this series. I'm still confident in that, and I think they will win Game 6 on their home floor. Jimmy Butler's not going to.
If they don't win Game 6, I mean, I'm with Charles Barkley. I think
I'm going to say this, though. I actually still disagree with that. Because even if they lose Game 6,
that's a real hot take. If you think that the Boston Celtics force a Game 7 and they lose that game, that's a real hot. Even Justin's looking at you like, you sure about that?
Why is it a hot take when the Celtics are, what are they, a 500 team at home?
They would have came back and tied a series down 3 games to nothing.
They're 500 right now. They're a 500 team in the playoffs at home. Okay, and I'm not going to go all right and say, well, they did it against Philadelphia. Philadelphia, I mean, come on, they should be ashamed of themselves. They should be ashamed of themselves. All right, they were an absolute disgrace. Miami is not a disgrace. Okay, they play. Listen, Boston outplayed them last game and in for a half in Game 4. Okay, but again, I don't think this is going to continue. They're playing good basketball. Miami's not playing great basketball, and I just think that Jimmy Butler's not scoring 14 points in Game 6. It's not happening. Bam Adebayo, okay, he hasn't been great. He's not going to play this bad again in Game 6. Okay, and I just think they're going to put up an effort. Okay, I know Gabe Vincent was hurt last game. Hopefully he'll be back this game. Okay, but again, these are the Miami Heat. They're not just going to get rolled over for 4 games. I just think they're going to respond. They're going to come back, and they're going to win. I know there's a lot of people disagreeing with that now, but again, this has been the theme of the whole playoffs, Tom. Every time something's gone with Miami, oh, they're the 8th seed. The other team will come back. Don't worry. They're not great. Okay, Miami's been hearing this all postseason long about how they're gonna get beat, they're gonna do this, right? Something's gonna happen, okay? And they continue to respond. So I am not going against them. I am not going against Eric Spoelstra, who I know will make adjustments, okay? And I'm gonna go with the team that has been more consistent in the playoffs, and that has been the Miami Heat. The Boston Celtics have been up, down, spin around, they haven't been consistent, and I just can't trust them. I trust Miami, and they're gonna get it done.
You
All
want
right,
to say
Brad,
anything,
you're
Justin?
you're forcing my hand. Yeah. You just got to face reality. It's happening. The Celtics are going to win the series. They are. I just see a different Celtics team over the last couple of games. And listen, it's a bigger deal than we might have thought. But what's the status of Gabe Vincent in Game 6? Obviously had the ankle issue in Game 4. Didn't play Game 5, and clearly that changed something. And I didn't think I'd sit here and say Gabe Vincent as a big X factor in an Eastern Conference final. But Charles Barkley is 100% right. Game 6 is Game 7 if you're the
When he
Miami
said
Heat.
that, I
They're
thought
not.
about it, and I
I'm
couldn't
sorry.
agree
The
more.
Celtics are not losing a Game 7.
And he called it,
at the
by the
TD
way.
Garden.
He said Boston was not going to lose in Game 5 in Boston. They now feel like they have momentum, and I agree with you, Brad.
Listen, I guess it's just something that Boston sports does because the Red Sox came from 3-0 down against the Yankees.
The Bruins Flyers years ago.
Was it Bruins Flyers? I thought it was Bruins Maple Leafs, but maybe you're right. Bruins Flyers. I know the Bruins did come back from 3-0 down. And I think wasn't that even 2011 when they won the cup?
Yeah, I think it was either 2010 or 2011. I'm almost certain. I'm pretty sure
One
it's
of
Bruins
those years
Flyers,
the Bruins came back down from 3-0. So is it something with Boston?
Yeah, you know what? I just don't know. To me, Brad, and I agree with you that Boston, even against Atlanta, wasn't impressive. Philadelphia, they kind of were hit and miss. But sometimes in sports, you win a couple in a row. It changes things here. So I mean,
It
I don't
could,
know.
but I'd like to say one more thing, by the way, before we get off this topic. I'd like to say one more thing.
Sure.
Because it is quite coincidental that if the Boston wins Game 6, all right, and they go back to Boston in Game 7, you guys remember how the Eastern Conference Finals ended the last time the Heat and the Celtics played?
Yes, I do.
The Celtics went to Miami in Game 7 and won at the end of the game. And you remember Jimmy Butler missed that big shot that could have tied the game, and they could have. Ladies and gentlemen, if it goes to Game 7, you will see the best of Jimmy Butler. He will not let them lose. I'm telling you right now.
I tell you what, they better wait. Listen,
I don't think he's going to let them lose in Game 6. But if they get to Game 7, Jimmy Butler is going to play.
I don't know. I go back to my gut. If I'm down, if I had a 3-0 lead, I blow the lead. I would just, I don't know, man. They better win tomorrow, the weekend. They better win the weekend. If I'm Miami,
I do think they need to win. But with that being said, I wouldn't panic and say that they can't win Game 7. A lot of people are just counting them out. The Miami Heat play best when they're counted out. Just remember that.
I agree on all that. There, obviously, we'll have to see. Certainly, the Denver Nuggets, regardless, are going to have to wait a little while longer to see. And the game is
By the way,
tonight.
just a quick correction. It was the Flyers that beat the Bruins down 3-0.
Okay. I figured there was something there. Okay, fair enough. They appreciate that.
So it's happened one time in Major League Baseball. Obviously, the 04 Red Sox. And it's happened 4 times in the NHL. Never happened in the NBA. In the NHL, we had the Leafs come back down.
Islanders, Penguins, right in the 70s, right? Was it the Islanders?
Yep, so the 1942 Stanley Cup Final, the Leafs erase a 3-0 deficit. The 75 Islanders come back from 0-3 down against the Penguins.
Did the Kings do it one year also when they won the Stanley Cup?
So we're talking about the Flyers and Bruins. Yes, the 2014 Kings were down 0-3, beat the Sharks, and they end up winning the cup.
Yep, I knew
that was the first series that they came back from.
The Kings, I remember. Well, the NHL, listen, home ice. I was having a conversation with this.
I will say real quick. My dad's actually a huge Kings fan. He's from California.
Sure.
And I actually remember talking to him that night and saying they were down 0-3, and I think they got their ass kicked too in Game 3. And I was like, I don't know, something doesn't feel right. I feel like they're going to make this. I think they're going to make this comeback, and sure enough, they did. I just had some feeling about the Kings that year.
And that's kind of how I feel about the Boston Celtics right now.
Yeah, you know what? I'm getting, watching Games 4 and 5, I'm getting that feeling with the Celtics.
Yeah.
I think they're just going to pull it off.
I don't know. All I'm going to say is, Brad, Miami better win tonight. They better
100%.
win tonight. So a couple of comments here before I get to closing thoughts. Yes, we talked about that with Anthony Finkel. What time are you getting to the game tomorrow? I'm probably not going to get there literally till the game starts. So I'm going to tell you right now, I'm probably not going to get there. There's almost zero chance I get there early because it's an early time. But I'll be there probably 1 o'clock or give or take a few minutes before, a few minutes less, and we'll definitely figure that out when that time comes. Summer still not really. It's not quite summer weather.
Wait,
yet.
whoa! I got to see that comment again. What was he talking about?
He wants to have a party at his house in Brooklyn, but
Oh.
it's not quite summer weather yet. Was my point. We'll definitely.
Okay, I like to hear that though, Anthony Finkel. Weren't we talking about this like a week or two ago? That Anthony Finkel's the one needing to throw pool parties.
He does have a big
He's
house.
trying to tell you to do it, Tom Bryce. He was telling you to do it.
No, my place is not, unfortunately.
Right, but now we were saying that it should be Anthony Finkel, but now
Well,
it's
Anthony Finkel does have a place in Brooklyn. He lives in a certainly well-to-do neighborhood, I would say. Well, it's sort of a well-to-do neighborhood. His block is. The rest of it's like.
All right. To answer your question, Anthony Finkel, I'll be there at 12:30. Be there at 12:30.
Oh, you're at the 12. Oh, so you're not going to get there that much early. Okay, all right. I figure like it's not you're going to get there in tailgate or something. No, I mean that's what I thought. You weren't going to get there that early. No, I thought
12:30. I'll be there at 12:30.
Yeah, I think I'll probably get there just about 1 o'clock. So good stuff. We'll definitely talk about that in a few minutes here. But we certainly ran the gauntlet here on Sportswire Radio. Ran up through a lot of topics. Didn't really talk about the Yankees too much. We kind of referenced them with the Padres. Yankees also had an up and down week here. Obviously, we'll see what they do, but they're still. I think they'll get to where they need to be. Guys are coming back, so we'll let obviously Chris talk about that next week. But Rob Maraska, going to go to you for closing thoughts. Anything else you want to plug, share, or say? And the floor is yours.
Great show again, guys. I just have to announce the winner of the Strawberry Mets mystery card cards. It's Don Morosky of Hamburg, New York.
That's all the way up there in Erie County, Hamburg, New York.
Like, where is that?
I think it's up there, way up there. Hamburg, I'm pretty sure, is by like the Canadian border. One of those little small outlets out there.
Yeah, it's up there. So he's the winner of that contest.
And who was his name again?
Don Morosky.
Okay, and he has a Twitter.
On Twitter, he's at ChemMienj. Whatever.
Okay, well, that's a long name, and I wish you a lot of luck, Don, in getting that card. And anything else you want to say? Anything else on your mind you'd like to get off here and talk about before we move on to the rest of the guys?
That's about it. Like I said, good show, guys. Great.
Yeah, good stuff. I thought it was solid. Had a good flow. Randy Dillon came back and opened things up for us. Obviously, we got to riff on a little bit more just the Mets, and I thought it flowed well. So great stuff. Everybody follow you at rmaraska on Twitter, and looking forward to that. And Justin, want to give you the floor, give you some closing thoughts. Anything else you want to plug, share, or say? And the floor is yours, my friend, and fire away.
All right, thanks, Tom. Thank you guys for another good week. I will see you guys in a few weeks. I'll be off the next couple of weeks. I'll be back on the 16th of June.
Okay.
But baseball banter will return. I'll be on vacation next couple of weeks. So
nice.
When I get back, we'll restart the baseball banter. Looking forward to seeing what the Mets do the rest of this weekend. Obviously, very pleased with how Max pitched tonight. Looking forward to the both championships.
I think the Mets, they've won 7 of their last 9 games, so it's not as if like they're struggling to an extent. So they're playing better. I know the competition hasn't been what it's cracked up to be, but maybe we'll see next week when it's the Mets and the Phillies and the Blue Jays. So
yeah, it's gonna be a good test for them next week for sure. So you guys can follow me at JGNelly12 on Twitter, and we'll talk to you guys again soon.
All right, excellent stuff there, and appreciate that. I think somebody's got an issue here. So the Brew Force, Brad Weiss, I'm going to let you speak. We might be having a little bit of a technical difficulty there at somebody's end, so I'm going to, you know the drill here at this point, so I'm going to turn it over to you, and anything else you might want to say, hit us with a surprise or two, and fire away.
Yeah, absolutely. So thank you guys for another great week of the show. Thank you, Justin, Rob. Of course, Randy Dillon as well was on earlier, so appreciate everybody who's on the show tonight. Of course, some of our supporters, John Gonzalez, Omen Black, a bunch of other guys who came on and supported us tonight. We want to thank you all for viewing and obviously supporting our show. You can follow me on Instagram at bweiss20 and at Coach Brad Weiss. You can find me at BradWeiss20 on Twitter and searching Bradley Weiss on Facebook. So with that being said, we talked about the Mets. We talked about different other sports, talked about the NBA Finals. All right, let's talk about a team that needs to be talked about here. All right, that me, Tom, Anthony Finkel, my parents, all right, cousin Hillary, Rob Shanahan, James DeSimone, Jason Getz, Alex Martellecci. Everybody is going to see at the Barclays Center tomorrow. And that is the New York Liberty. All right, because they're the team to talk about here in New York City right now.
I got a message from that. One of our friends, Brian Gusman, said the same thing. So go ahead.
So I can't wait to be back at the Barclays Center and watch our Liberty. They had a first tough loss, this season against a good Mystics team that's playing very well right now. And I think that, that was kind of their, game to figure it out a little bit. They came back against, the struggling Fever, and they got a big win. And Brianna Stewart, whose jersey I'm hoping to buy tomorrow, okay, is definitely that player. She had 45 points, in her home opener against the Fever for the Liberty. So I can't wait to see her. I can't wait to see the rest of the team. They're playing a very good Connecticut Sun team who started the season off 3-0. So will be certainly a test for those New York Liberty. But I can't wait to have, the family there. As I just said, Tom Bryce, we're going to have James DeSimone, Jason Getz, Alex Martellecci. They're all there, and they want to meet you. So they can't wait to see you. So as well as Anthony Finkel and all the rest of our guys.
Meeting them, yep.
So they're going to be in the building. So they will be in another section. But, I was able to get them in thanks to our buddy Wade Richardson, who got me a few tickets here late for them to get into the game. So I want to thank Wade. And I'm really excited for those Liberty. It's already an exciting season, the first two games. I've watched a couple of WNBA games. Have been really good of recent. So I'm excited for this season and just excited to get back to Barclays Center. They got a nice new court as well for the Liberty. So it's going to be a lot of fun. So I'm looking forward to that experience over at the Barclays Center in Brooklyn tomorrow at 1 o'clock to see those New York Liberty. With that being said, everything else is going well, level up. My teams are doing pretty well. I got to congratulate on the air because I did it last weekend. My fifth graders who won the championship. Who won the championship in the Premier basketball tournament last week. So I want to give them a shout out here on the show for being champions. And, my other two teams are competing. So a lot to come going forward. Definitely. And next week I'll be in Westchester in a tournament. So I'm looking forward to that. I also, at this point next week, will be my final day before I have a puppy. His name is Cooper, but we're adding another puppy next week to the Weiss household. So next week will be a new dog. We'll now have two. So I'm super excited for that as well. So there's a lot to be excited about here. Looking forward to another great show here. Getting into June now, Tom Bryce. We're getting halfway through the year into June. So I'm excited for that. The last thing I'll quickly mention as a fun nugget is, I have Uncle Rob here, Rob Shanahan, who's a Vikings fan. And he was certainly happy to see Aaron Rodgers leave the division, that's for sure. But he said that he was potentially going to come on the show as a guest and talk about, Aaron Rodgers, but he had some choice words, so I couldn't let him come on. So with that being said, he does not like Aaron Rodgers, and he probably has some things to say about the Rodgers. But I will say I did get him to admit, Tom Bryce, that even though the Packers aren't the team, he said, just like us, the Detroit Lions are a team to be reckoned with. And he, as a Vikings fan, admitted it. So that says a lot.
All right there. Certainly really excited about that. And obviously looking forward to meeting James DeSimone, Jason Getz, and Alex Martellecci there. I'm almost very curious where they're sitting tomorrow. I'm very, very fascinated on where that'll be. And Anthony Finkel, I know his birthday. Happy birthday, Anthony Finkel.
Yes, happy birthday, Anthony Finkel. I got to make sure we say that. Happy birthday.
Yep. I've been wishing him. I've been on like 7 times in 3 days. I think I wished him 7 birthdays in a row. But yeah, we'll definitely see him tomorrow. Excited about that. There's certainly a mild surprise that you brought in James DeSimone and Jason Getz and Alex Martellecci there. I thought you were first going to say Matt Hurt was coming, but I'm like, nah, Matt Hurt's too big time. He wouldn't show up to something like this. Well,
I will say this. I mean, I don't know where he went, but I was going to tell Mr. John Gonzalez that he should show up to the game as well. But he just left us. I mean, he was here at the beginning and he just left. So
I
Tom
mean, look.
Gonzalez, I like to
Well, we
see him
actually
today at
almost
the
had
game.
somebody else. My brother actually was thinking about going to the game, but he goes back to work the next day, and he was like, it's too much of a commute, and he was like, I don't want to have to get up early. So he was actually, ironically, thinking about going to the game, but he's not going to the game. So it's unfortunately that's not going to happen. We had another person to have gone with us, and I had asked my friend Brian Gussman, an attorney, but I think he's too big time, so he'll probably be on a beach somewhere. But that's okay. But great stuff there. I'm looking forward to that. Everybody can follow the Brew Force at bwise20 on Instagram. JGNLE91 on Twitter, also Instagram as well, B-Ball Banter SM. You can check that out. Also, we'll have a show for them later this week. And want to thank everybody here that is tuned in on Sportswire. We just passed the 600 follower milestone here this week. And I actually have to give a big shout out to somebody that's tuned in. Speaking of Brooklyn, that's up here, Mr. Ari Barkin. And Ari is a big deal for a second here that he's actually up and tuned in because Ari is actually an actor. He's a big time actor. He's been in a number of different movies. He's had some like kind of side roles. He's been a character actor, and he's also might like me, but he's big time. He's in the wrestling world now. He's doing interviews and all types of wrestlers. He was at WrestleMania. He had a press pass. He's a really big deal. I've known Ari through Mr. Steven Saperstein for a long time, but we never formally met in person. And I think me and Mr. Barkin will have a chat at some point. Yeah, we'll definitely make that happen in the next few weeks. And Ari is saying he's humbled, but I think Ari is kidding because Ari, we've known each other a while, and you are a big time deal. You have an IDMB account, and I can Google Ari Barkin, and definitely you'll see all his big roles. But yeah, Ari is a big deal. He's a big deal, especially if you're from Brighton Beach and Manhattan Beach, and he's a great guy. He has always been a friend for a long time. He was a great asset to us on the Saperstein campaign, so we really appreciate that. Yeah, we'll definitely talk some wrestling. Ari, get your thoughts. Maybe one Friday night, actually. If you're not doing anything, maybe next Friday. If you're around before the guys come on here at 10:30, maybe we can have a chat and talk about Night of Champions and Double or Nothing. So we'll definitely talk about that. I'll message you when I'm off the air. But I do want to thank everybody that has tuned in. I want to thank all the wrestlers that have come on here of late. Jack Delta, obviously Omen Black, your good buddy, Omen Black, Big Cheese, the Big Cheese Logan, Craven Rage. We had on today Ben Hampton from Breakout Pro Wrestling, Kyle Kennedy, the Lawman. We have James Taylor, 31,000 subscriber man on YouTube, coming on here Sunday, and a lot more stuff ahead. But I want to thank everybody that's tuned in, and thank you, Ari, as well for your support. I'll definitely message you here in a little while when I get off. But we were joined by Justin Gianelli at the Baseball Banter Show, Mr. Rob Maraska, and the Brute Force Brad Weiss, 27th all-time in SJLI Golden Eagles men's basketball history and rebounds. He is the coach for the Plainview JFK Hawks boys JV basketball team, also a coach with Level Up Basketball, where we'll see our buddy James D. Simone tomorrow in Kings County, Brooklyn, New York, Barclays Center there, Atlantic and Pacific, Atlantic Avenue, Brooklyn, New York, 11217. He's also with the Long Island Nets, and if it's still a thing, the Long Island Brew Crew. But my name, again, is the Reverend Tom Bryce. If you're on sportnarium.com/player, you go back to your regularly scheduled program. If you're on Facebook, Twitter, and YouTube, I'll be back. That's right, Sunday night, 9 p.m. Eastern Time. The Nemesis, James Taylor. Be there or be square. But until then, happy Memorial Day weekend. God bless everyone. Be safe out there on the roads. Enjoy the beaches. Beaches are opening. Pool weather is ahead. Anthony Finkel, you're up next because your pool is bigger than everyone else's combined. And we'll see everybody here real soon on the number one global radio station that is Sports